everyone to the Matchmaker with Letitia Underwood. Today we're going to discuss, as you all know, it's High Value Men Sunday, the live Q&A session panel. And today we're going to discuss the roadmap to dating men in a higher socioeconomic class. It is a continuation of last week's conversation where we discussed why socioeconomic class plays an important part in mate selection. So if this is your first time joining, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and like and share this video and grab your favorite drink and let's get into it. Alrighty. Okay, so welcome everyone. And I am your host, Letitia. Go ahead and like the video. I don't know what's going on with my lighting. I had it perfect before I started, and then I don't know what happened. Now it seems like it's getting darker. Okay, go ahead and like this stream, share it, and if this is your first time joining, welcome. I have a very special guest joining me later. He is returning from last week's discussion. Actually got a lot of feedback, positive feedback. Viewers definitely enjoyed his contribution when discussing socioeconomic class dynamics when it comes to mate selection. So just go ahead and what happened to it? Hit the like button. Let's get the likes up. Okay, so socioeconomic class, I know that it is kind of a topic that most people don't want to think about because it sounds kind of elitist, right? It sounds elitist to think that men at the bottom are not going to be fit for husbands or to try to steer women towards the men at the top. But I'm talking to women who want to get married. And statistics and studies show that at higher socioeconomic levels, couples postpone marriage and childbirth. That's why you don't see out of wedlock births happening at that rate, right? You don't see a lot of frivolous marriages, right? They'll postpone marriage, they'll postpone childbirth to invest in education and careers, right? They're focused on becoming stable, right? But they eventually marry at higher rates and have relatively low risk of divorce. And the reason why that is because there's higher compatibility. So if you have both people aligning in their values, culture, and class, you're likely to have less divorce. So ladies, if you want a higher chance of marriage with the less likelihood of being divorced, you're going to have to date someone in a higher socioeconomic class. At lower socioeconomic levels, couples are more likely to cohabitate and give birth prior to marriage and less likely to marry at all. I mean, that's the studies. That's what the studies are showing. That's what the data, right? That's not my opinion. That's not my personal opinion. And I know people are like, oh, she's so elitist and she's so full of herself. It's not my personal opinion. This is all facts based on the data. So the purpose of the channel is to help women understand how to get there. The first point of how to get there is it starts with you, right? It starts with you. It starts with you and how you are cultivating your own life. What are you doing? How are you being? And having an understanding of such men, right? Knowing what is expected of you and required of you when you do elevate, right? Are you going to be a woman who is going to be able to bring value, not just to your husband, but to his family and to the community and to society at large? Because that's what they're going to be looking at. So in which ways are you doing that? You're going to be doing that through your interests, your hobbies, especially your interests, and your education, your social circle, and who you're networking with, right? Your network is going to be very important, very valuable. I know there's a lot of conversation around social media where men are saying your education, it means nothing. We don't value that. Listen, men in the higher socioeconomic classes, high value men, do value education. Now, will they marry a woman who does not have education? Yes. If she hits all other types of measurements, she's attractive and they get along very well, he will overlook the fact that she doesn't have an education. As long as she's intelligent, she's showing that she's capable and she's smart. But they really don't really want the quote unquote dumb bimbo. They do like smart, intelligent women, competent women, and um, going to college shows and finishing college, it says a lot about you. It says that you are capable of finishing something, right? That you can stick with something. And maybe that's why amongst the educated class, the marriage rates are higher and the divorce rates are lower, because those two people have shown they have a propensity to stick together. College is hard. Anyone who's been to college, you know it's hard, it's very grueling, it's rigorous, it's a different environment. You have people from all over the place. You don't really know anyone, and you're just put there, and it's like being thrown in the deep end and expected to swim. And but if you can get through all of that, not to mention you get through your bachelor's, your master's, all the way up to a PhD, that says a lot about a person. That says that person is focused, ambitious, they know what they want, and they're willing to fight through all the difficulties to achieve their goal. And that goal is to get the diploma, to get the degree. You have midterms, you have peer pressure. It affects your dating life because you don't have much time for it. Sometimes it affects your sleep schedule. It's just stress, class after class. When I was in college, we only needed to take up to 12 classes to complete a quarter or a semester. Now you need about 16 to 20 credits per semester. That's a lot. That is a lot of work. You have, and then you have midterms, you have quizzes, and then your professor expects so much of you. So there's a lot of pressure. So if you can get through that, that says a lot. That says that you have what it takes to go the distance. Now, does that set you apart and make you better than anyone else? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that men in the higher socioeconomic classes, they do look at that. High value men, while they're not necessarily saying, hey, she's got to have a degree. They're not going to say, hey, she can't have a degree either. So, and then your degree program also helps to build your network, because your network is going to be important, because your network and who you socialize with will help to cultivate your social skills. It will help you gain those social skills. So it is very important that you be more picky about whom you are socializing with. Like my social circle is very small, and there are certain people I do not socialize with. Why? Because I don't want to pick up those habits. I don't want to pick up bad habits from the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you dress, right? The way you engage in conversation. It can make or break you when it comes to dealing with a high value man. So ladies, I would suggest that you look at your social circle. Who are you socializing with, right? I know a lot of men are on social media and they're like, well, you birds of a feather flock together. All these women are OnlyFans and they're porn stars and they're on IG looking for validation. I don't believe all women are doing that. But I will say that women have friends that are doing it. They're socializing with other women who are doing it, which then looks bad on you, because even if you're not taking your clothes off, your mindset is going to be just like that of that woman, right? How she looks at money, how she looks at men. The conversations the two of you are going to have are going to be about men. In her mindset, because she already has a negative mindset about men based on what she does, can affect you as a woman, even if you're not taking your clothes off. So it's very important to cultivate your social circles to women who you aspire to be like. So yes, I'm telling you, all of the bad ones, you need to cut them off. If she has an OnlyFans, or she's a stripper, or she is a porn star, she's on IG, selling her body, you need to separate yourself from her, because so that her mindset is not wearing off. And then if a high value man comes across you and he's like, who finds that she's your friend, he's going to be questioned if you're doing that. Because if you're not doing that and you're one of the good women, why are you hanging around such a woman who is showing that she's immoral, or she's willing to sell her body for money, right? She's of low character. So he's going to question you, and you really don't want to lose out based on him questioning whether or not you are selling your body for money. So your social circle, who you're hanging out with, is important, not just based on the fact that he's going to think that you're doing that, but her mindset can wear off on you. The way that she looks at money, she sees her body, she sees her body as a way of getting money. It's an exchange. She sees relationship dynamics as an exchange, right? As a transaction. So she's always trying to negotiate her body for more money. And you don't want that, because what she's going to do, and I'm telling you what she's going to do, is she's going to sit there, she's going to say, girl, you got to get all that money. Nope, no honey, unless he's spending your money, unless he's paying your rent. When a guy is trying to get to know you and he's dating you or he's courting you, he is not financially responsible for you. He is not your father, right? He is not the men in your family. So having this expectation that he needs to pay your bills in order to date you, that is basically you're signaling that you're a prostitute. And if you're not a prostitute, then you don't want to associate with women who move like that. Not because they're bad people, and I'm not saying it's about trying to say that you're better, but it's about the mindset and then the thought process. You don't want to start thinking like a prostitute. You don't want to start moving and behaving like a prostitute, even though you're not taking your clothes off, because that will affect your relationship with your high value man. So your social circle, first and foremost, is one of the keys to getting to dating a man in a higher socioeconomic class. Your social circle. 2, your education background. A lot of women are going to school, they're going to college, they're getting educated. Okay, what are you doing? Who are you affiliating with? What program are you under, right? Are you being useful? Is it something you can be useful with? Nursing, teaching, go into the programs that are going to foster creativity and nurturing. Because it will, the nurturing and the creativity, it'll help you flourish in your feminine energy. If you're going into STEM, not saying anything is wrong with going into STEM or the sciences or anything. All I'm saying is that it's going to force you to exert more masculine energy. Now, if you're going into these programs because you want to find a husband, you want to get nearer to the men who are in these programs, then by all means, go ahead. But education, so college is essential. So all of you, if there are any young women under my voice, choose college over OnlyFans. Choose college over porn. Choose college over trying to be an IG model. Choose college over trying to be an influencer. Yes, you're getting the money, right? You're getting the money, you're getting the attention, but what about the future, right? After you've made your money, at some point you're going to want to have children, and you're going to want to get married, and you're going to want to get married to a man who has money. And you can't really outrun your past, right? So if you are focused on doing the right thing, taking the right path, you can meet your husband in college. Why you're in college? What do you need to worry about money? Sure, if you are coming from a lower socioeconomic class, a poor background, I get it. I get survival. But if you don't have any children, you don't need all that luxury designer stuff right now. I know peer pressure is crazy. Trust me, I raised a young lady who is Gen Z, and we had this conversation where she said the peer pressure was crazy. The peer pressure for wearing all of the makeup and the peer pressure for certain clothes and the peer pressure for being able to do certain things and being on social media. And I protected her from all of that. And by the time she got to college, she was so far removed from it. Her mindset was so far removed from it that she wasn't really trying to be out there like that. She wanted to focus on school. And then she met her now fiance, fell in love, and that's that. And then she didn't have to worry about any baggage. She didn't mess around with the wrong guy who knocked her up. And then now her chances of finding the right man or a good man or a high value man is obsolete. No, she got it right from the very beginning. So um go to college instead of choosing OnlyFans. And I know that that's probably going to be, I think this is going to be a controversial statement in 2023. That will be a controversial statement. Think about it. That's a controversial statement, or could potentially be a controversial statement. Go to college instead of becoming an OnlyFans uh, star, a porn star, or an Instagram model, or an influencer. Go to college. You're asking me, where can I meet all these good men with money? They're going to be in college. That is the one place that you're going to find the most compatibility, the most likeness, and you're both at the same point at the same time. So it's going to be easier. He doesn't have any money. You don't have any money. But what you can do is you can vet and recognize the growth and the potential. And that's on both sides. Men can vet and recognize the growth and potential of the woman, and the male can recognize and vet the growth and potential of the female, right? Are you willing to ride that wave, stick it out until he's finished with his program and you finish your program? And then after you're done and you're starting to get your careers established, you get married, and then after a couple of years you have some babies, right? That's the path. That should be the path. And I know and I know that's so old school, and people are gonna be like, that's so old school. This is not the 1950s. It doesn't have to be the 1950s for it to be the right path, because the path to marriage is always the same: choosing the right partner, choosing compatibility, focusing on it at your optimal age, at an optimal age earlier in life is the likelihood for more success. And I know people are like, well, people get married in their 20s, the rate for divorce is high. That is true. But no one is saying you have to get married at 22. But there's no excuse or no reason why you don't find him at 22, right? And then you're already have elevated yourself or found someone who is on the same level as you and who is going to be on the same level as you financially. So if you're in college at this moment, from here on out, I think you're still in the first semester. From here on out, start putting yourself in proximity of young men who want to get serious about relationships. There are some men who are not going to want to do it. They're just don't want relationships. Okay, you skip those ones and you bypass them. They're nice to look at. They're nice to dance with. They're nice to have fun, go on a date and chit chat with. But once he signals he's not looking for a girlfriend, he's not looking for anything serious, you bypass him. And you keep going until you find the guy who is serious, the guy that you're attracted to who is serious. You don't have sex with them. You don't have sex with a guy that is not willing to offer you commitment. He doesn't want a relationship. Okay, we could be friends. We could be cool. We'd hang out, but no sex, right? So, and if you're beyond college, your path to the roadmap to dating, and I think my Wi-Fi is messing up. Okay. If you're out of college, yeah, my Wi-Fi, this is freezing. Ugh. Okay. Hopefully it's not storming, so I don't know why it's messing up. All right. So having technical issues because my Wi-Fi is. What is going on? Okay, so I think it's back. It's having technical issues, but I think it's better now. Okay, so for the women who are beyond college, you're out of college. You're like, Letitia, I'm not in college. I've started my career, but I'm trying to get married because I want to start my family, and I'm listening to what you're saying. And how do I get my high value man? You get your high value man by through your network, through your social circle. Who are you associating with? Who are you in alignment with? And then you look at who are you as a woman? How are you being? Right? What do high value men want? What do they desire in a woman? And are you that? And I cannot stress enough how important your looks is to such men. I just cannot stress how important that is. And it seems like I'm beating a dead horse. But I'm not gonna lie, as a matchmaker, I have yet to see a multimillionaire, whether he's never been married or whether he is going on his second or third wife. Haven't gotten one that's on wife number 4. Um, I've yet, and even with my colleagues, when we're collaborating together, I have yet to see one who is okay with a thick, overweight, obese woman. If you see that happening, these are men who got with their wives when they were younger. But men in the upper socioeconomic classes, more times than not, those women weren't that size when they first got together. Those women were much, much smaller. And then after having kids and over time, stress, whatever, she starts to put on the weight and he's not going to knock her for it, right? They're not mean. They're not ogres. It's like, okay, you have my kids, so I'm not going to sit up here. I love you, and I'm not going to sit up here and toss you aside because you put on weight, right? He loves her for who she is. But if you have one that is already successful and he's out there on the market, he's not looking for a woman who can't show him that she values herself. So, your roadmap is to show that you value yourself. And how do you show that you value yourself? How you look, taking care of yourself, taking care of your health. It is important because if you're showing that you take care of your health, then you're showing him that you are capable of taking care of him and a family, that you make good decisions. Poor eating habits show that you make poor decisions. And this is something that a lot of women need to understand, that sure, you want him to get to know you for you. Your personality is great. You're a nice person. But he can't see that beyond the weight factor. He won't even get there. He won't even be able to know that because he's not interested in someone who is bigger. So all I'm saying is, and this is not about bashing women, all I'm saying is, ladies, to increase your chances, please eat healthy, adopt a healthier diet, get into the gym, just lose the weight, a fitter look. And the fact that 70% of women are overweight or obese disqualifies them for the most part, right? The only men who like bigger women are men in the lower socioeconomic classes. And that's why women have so many problems with men today, because you're dealing with the lowest of the low. You're having to deal with men who know that they can't compete with other men. They can't compete with the men in the higher socioeconomic class. So yes, they're have a vested interest in being with someone who is bigger because they don't want to lose their woman. Men have a fear of loss when it comes to relationship dynamics. They don't want that rejection. So lower class men, that's what they can get. Plus, when you hear one say, well, my man likes it, or a man saying, I like that, it's because he doesn't want to compete. And he knows he can't compete because they all want fitter women. That's just the red pill for you ladies. They all want fit women. You can tell by the IG likes, the porn, mostly the IG likes, who they lust after. That's the body type they really like. Now, if they could get that woman, and she's not an OnlyFans, she's not a porn star, she's not a prostitute. If they could get her without the poor character or the lack in morals and values, that's the woman they want. That's the woman they all want. But they know men know that, hey, if I don't have money, if I don't have looks, I can't get that woman. So I got to take what I can get. So then when it comes to women, it's like they don't want you to get bigger, because then they could lose you to another man. They could lose you to a man who has more, because that is the mating strategy of women. Women will go to the men who have more. But for bigger women, the self-esteem component keeps you from putting yourself out there towards those men. So you deal with what you have. And what you have is bottom barrel, lower socioeconomic class men. So when you do the work, empower yourself through your attractiveness, your health, your well-being, you then will start to attract better men. You will start to attract men from a higher social economic level, men with higher status. Men with higher status, they pride themselves on having what no one else has, or having the best, or having the most valuable things. Even when it comes to their hobbies, their interests, they like things that are valuable, that have value, that have the most value, that have the highest value. So they're going to want their women to do that too. And women who are fit tend to have the highest value. The more attractive you are physically and in your body, the more value you hold on the market. So let's see. I got a question. Looking forward to your thoughts on class and marriage. It's obvious to some, but many remain oblivious to how much it impacts the success of marriage. Yes, I said that in the very beginning, that the marriage rates are higher amongst the higher socioeconomic classes, and divorces are lower. And the reason why that is because there's more compatibility there. There's culture. Culture is a real thing, right? Culture is a real thing. And within that culture will be background, social skills, interests and hobbies, networks and social circles, right? Like it's let's say you have a woman who is a professional, and she has to network with other professionals. Her job, there is a charity event, she's got to get dressed up and she's got to go. And she's married to a man in a lower socioeconomic class. He is going to feel uncomfortable in that environment. He's going to feel uncomfortable and out of place, and he's going to not want to go. But for her, and at that level, it's important to have your spouse by your side. And if your spouse is not by your side, then you got to make up an excuse, and then you get in the side eyes and the side conversations like, oh, is she getting a divorce? What's going on? And her husband don't like her. Is he cheating on her? Like, is he abusing her? Like, what's going on? So then that's going to affect how your colleagues are going to see you. They're going to see, can you make decisions? Are you capable of making a good decision? Good judgment? How can I trust you in positions of leadership or making decisions if you can't even do it, get it right in your own life? And that's just, whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree or not, that's just how they're going to see it. So successful men are assessed by their peers, and a physically unfit woman shows his peers he doesn't have good judgment in choosing an unpolished, undisciplined woman. Fitness requires discipline. That is correct. I'm telling you, when it comes to fitness and diet, you have to be very, very disciplined, very, very disciplined. After my cancer battle, when I got into remission a few years ago, over the course of the years, because I was sedentary and on certain medications that caused me to put on weight, I had got all the way up to, at my heaviest, 170. Now, over time, I got back down to 155, but I was not happy. I was not okay. My man pointed out, was like, man, you kind of like, you better now, and, you don't have any health issues. So make sure that that's okay. And now it's like, it's time for you to, get it together. So I think I lost about 25 pounds, 25, because I'm about 130 now, 130, trekking down to 125. So yes, it's important. They take that very seriously. So the roadmap to dating men in a higher socioeconomic class. Thank you for all of you who just tuned in. Make sure you like and share this video. And if you're new, make sure to hit the subscribe button. This is a channel for women on how to attract uh, date and marry high value men. And when I say high value men, that means men who have the three pillars, which is money, status, and character. That is the making of a high value man. If you don't have those three, you're not a high value man. You're just a good man or you're just a high earner. So if you don't have the money, but you have the character, you have the status, or just the character, you're just a good man. And if you don't, and if you have the money, but you don't have the character or the status, you're just a high earner. And that's what it is. So the roadmap for women, ladies, let me go over this again. Your social circles, who you socialize with, that will help, that will make or break. And when I know women are gonna be like, well, I see such and such, and you know, a lot of these men that you're seeing are not high value men, they're just high earners. So you really have to understand, you really have to have distinction for what I mean when I'm talking about a high value man, when I'm talking about a man who is in a higher socioeconomic class. A high earner is a man who comes from the lower socioeconomic classes and he makes money. He is not likely to be in white collar position. He does not have the education. He's not a professional. So you're going to see a lot of celebrities. You're going to see a lot of sports people. You're going to see a lot of ball players, a lot of entrepreneurs, self-made millionaires, right? They're in sales. They're in services. They're selling something. Until they've actually elevated and they've cultivated their hobbies, their interests, their social circles, their networks of other high socioeconomic class peers. That's when they'll become part of the higher socioeconomic classes, but they still won't necessarily be higher in the higher socioeconomic class, but their children and grandchildren will be accepted into that. So I'm not talking about men who have money. And ladies, you have to know the distinction. You have to have distinction between the high earners that come from a lower socioeconomic class. They bring that lower socioeconomic class mindset. And how do you know that they're lower socioeconomic class and they have brought that with them with their money? Their thought process on marriage, family, community. When you hear a man says, "Oh, high value men exercise their options," that is not a high value man. That is a man from the lower socioeconomic class who just has a lot of money and now he has status. So he thinks he's a high value man, and that's just simply not true. High value men value marriage. They value marriage, they value community, they value family, they value society. That's why they're so influential. That's where they're always constantly innovating. You see them as innovators. They're doing something to promote society, to promote their community, to make things better for their family, their community, and society at large. So his mindset and his thought process on marriage and relationships, he's not going to be he's not likely to be a high value man. He is a man with money who's come from a lower socioeconomic class. And the reason why I stress the lower socioeconomic class is because those men do not value marriage. They do not. They get their money and they want to play around. They're in their 30s and 40s and 50s and they want to play around. That is not a high value man. That is not a man who was born and raised in the higher socioeconomic classes. That is a lower class man with a lot of money. Now, if he's in his 20s and he's coming, he's born in the middle class and up, and he's like, yeah, I'm not ready to settle down. 20s and early 30s, that is understandable. But it's something about once they hit 35, 38, they're trying to settle down. It's required of them. It's expected of them. So you as a woman also have to have the mindset of that's what's going to happen. But you have to understand that's going to happen for you at a much younger age. In your 20s, early 30s is when you're going to be expected and required to settle down and think about having children. Because older established men are going to be looking to have children, and they're going to look to have as many children as possible. And they want someone who can give them that. High value men they don't see impossibilities. They only see the possibilities. And I know my guest, Ted, I know you're listening. I know you're going to like that. They only see the possibilities. So putting limitations on them, that's not something they're going to be happy with. So he may be comfortable with 2 kids, but the thought of him, he could have 4, he could have 6, he could have 8, he could have 10. And if that's what he wants that. So he's going to be looking for a woman who is going to be willing to give him that, a woman who can give him that, because a woman who can give him that would be likely a woman who is in her 20s and her 30s. This is not discounting older women, because older women, you're likely to match with a man who is much older and who is not wanting children. Or if he does want children, he's fine with just one or two. That's what he settled on. So it's not an absolute, it's just a periphery of how that's going to look and how that could possibly go. So the roadmap is, it starts with you ladies. It starts with how you look. It starts with how you care for yourself and take care of yourself. You caring for yourself shows to him that you'll be able to care for him, right? The better you take care of yourself, the better you'll be able to take care of him. And men think like that. Like, I know women think, men don't think. There's no way, he's too busy, he's got his life, and there's no way. Yes, they do. They're thinking about all the caring and the nurturing they can get. All that, all the soft things, the little things that they don't get out in the world, they're thinking about getting it from a woman, and they want it. And so they're sizing you up, and they're trying to figure out if they can get it, because they know you're going to lie. Because let's just face it, you're going to say, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can give you that, because you want him. So he can't go off of your words alone. He's got to go off of who you're showing him that you are. And if you are showing him that you care about yourself, then you are showing him that you can care about him. And another way that you show that you care about him, and you will care about his family, you will care about his vision, you will care about his life, his legacy, and what he has going on, is how you conduct yourself. Do you conduct yourself as a lady? Are you graceful? Are you classy? How do you handle conflicts? How do you handle situations when you're upset? Are you loud out in public? Are you vulgar? Too many women are just so vulgar, and I see the prettiest and the most educated women and the most soft-spoken women being so vulgar and crass. You can't be at the dinner party. You can't be at a high society dinner party and sitting there dropping F-bombs, using crass language. The men do that. They won't do it in the presence of women. But no, say that for your home. Say that for your private time. Say that amongst your small group of friends. But I would say get rid of that habit altogether, because when you learn to you're going to train yourself to not use that language altogether. I'm not even gonna lie, I had a bad potty mouth when I was younger. So I know women are gonna be like, oh, you can't do it. And yeah, I had a potty mouth when I was younger. But when my husband, my ex-husband, we moved onto the military base, and we were around officers. So we were around high-ranking enlisted men and officers. So I had to learn real quick how to conduct myself. And then as our daughter started getting older, I knew I had to be a role model to her. So I needed to rein in, and I need to do better, to be better in society, because I cared. I cared about how she was going to show up in the world, and I cared about how I was showing up in the world, and I cared about how they would see my husband, well, my ex-husband, right? Because you have to think, they're going to judge you, but they're going to judge your husband on you, who you are being and how you are being. And if you are, I'm sorry, my allergies are bothering me right now. It's so embarrassing. And if you are being a crass, vulgar woman, no one's going to want to be around that. The women aren't going to want to be around you. And if the women aren't going to want to be around you, guess what's going to happen? No invitations for him. They're not going to invite him because they don't want to deal with his wife. And then guess what's going to happen? Now he's going to be looking at you like, you're going to end a divorce, because high value men don't have a problem divorcing their wives. All this talk of men don't leave, that is at the lower level. Those men don't leave because they can't leave. A high value man will have no problem leaving. Jeff Bezos, anyone, he was over. He was done with that marriage. He wanted to trade McKinsey in for a hotter, younger model. And he did just that, because they do what they want to do. So if you think that you're going to sit around and not get it together, and you're going to lose your husband. If you think that you can just be you and do you and be how you are, and think that you're even going to be able to attract the high value man for the purpose of a relationship that can go the distance to marriage, think again. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Um, so the roadmap is you, starts with you. Let's get it together, ladies. Get in shape. Get our health together. I see it all the time. Women they just don't. And then so here's the thing: if you don't get it together, what you're dealing with is the best that you're going to get. That's what you're going to qualify for. So all I'm telling you is, if you want better, you have to do better. You cannot have this mindset of, well, he just has to accept me as I am. That does not work for high value men, because they won't. I'm here to tell you, they will not. They don't have to. These men have all these options. So you want this type of man. Why should he choose you is the question. It's not enough for you to want him to do so. You have to give him a reason to do so. And it starts with him being able to approach you. And if you're not giving him something to approach, then he's not going to be interested. So the way you look, the way you carry yourself, your carriage. And I know a lot of people don't think anything about carriage, but carriage says a lot. Carriage is the way that you sit. It's your frame. It's your framing. It's the way that you sit. It's the way that you stand, the way that you walk, the way that you hold your head. Are you exuding femininity just by your presence? A man can detect femininity without a woman even opening her mouth. And that is something that they're looking for as well. They're not looking for manly, hard, masculine, presenting, rough women. They're not looking for women who have no grace, right? If you're a truly feminine woman, there should be some grace there. Darby says she better be able to walk in heels. I trained myself to walk in heels from the time I was a little girl. I was enamored with heels. I was in my mother's heels since I was probably 4 or 5 years old. My daughter did the same thing. I don't wear 6-inch heels anymore. One, I'm much older, and then two, I can't do it because of where the cancer was in my body. But my daughter, she's wearing 6-inch heels at 22, and she walks like no other. One, because she's really short, but she loves her heels. It's something about heels that gives you an elegant, classy look, but you need to know how to walk in them. Clumping in them is not good. So practice. But I like that she better be able to walk in heels. So how you carry yourself, how you hold yourself, the way that you talk, the way that you address. Like, I'm not saying you have to be a doormat, but I just see too much contention and disagreeableness. Ladies, also, you have to stop being on social media surrounding yourself with lowbrow men, because lowbrow men will pull you into that negative, nasty energy where now you're arguing with them, right? You're being a woman, they're in their feminine, but now you're arguing with them and they're getting off on it and they're liking it. And then you have high esteemed men sitting back looking and they're like, wow, she's quite combative. She's quite cantankerous, quite contentious. Now, you know that's not who you really are, but because you're in a different environment, it's bringing that out. So gatekeep your environments, gatekeep your social circles, gatekeep who you're hanging around. Certain men and women are not people you should be hanging around. Lowbrow, if you're trying to elevate and marry a man in the higher socioeconomic classes, you're going to have to let go of certain people from your past, even certain people from your family, even certain friends. It is not saying that you're better than them. It's just that you're trying to transform yourself, and you have to transform your mindset, your thought process, your behaviors, even the way that you dress. Like, I know a couple of girls, young girls who are from the upper middle class who are dressing like 304s. Why? Because that's who they hang around. Because of the pressure they're under to not be a goody two shoes, right? I've not even in the upper class. I know one young lady in the upper class, and her father is like, Letitia, I don't get it. I said, it's her friends. Like, you have to gatekeep your children's friends, and yes, you have that right as their parent to gatekeep their friends, because now you got your daughters hanging out and looking like 304s and dressing totally opposite from how they were raised. They're rebelling from the culture because of the peer pressure of who they're hanging around. So speaking of that, like your college and your job, all of these things are important because it affects who you are. I had a young woman, I think it was about 3 years ago, who came to me, and she couldn't understand why she was at work and she was so frustrated. She reminded me of the character in Deliver Us from Eva with Gabrielle Union. She was this very severe woman who uh, wore her hair back in a tight bun. This woman wore her hair back in a tight bun. And she was so severe. And she's like, Letitia, my energy is just so frustrating. I said, it's the environment you're in. You're in an environment with all of these men, and you're trying to be one of the boys, and you're trying to be one of the boys, and so it's affecting your energy. You have to shift that. Stop hanging around such vulgar men, such masculine men. Try associating with the women more at work. Deal with the men, but you deal with them in a more feminine way. You don't try to be one of the boys. When you're trying to be one of the boys, and trust me, girls in the lower socioeconomic classes are trying to be one of the boys because it's fun. It's just a way to survive as well. You have to get, that's your way of getting along and collaborating, is having this tough exterior, because you can't be in those environments and being soft and coming across as weak. So girls are going to adapt that mindset and those behaviors. So you have to, and then men from the lower socioeconomic classes have those behaviors because they have to survive, right? It's survival of the fittest. So if you're in an environment, even at your job, where there are vulgar men, like high value men are not going to be vulgar in the presence of a lady. When men accidentally cuss around me, when they cuss around me, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My apologies. I don't mean it. Even my closest friends are like, my apologies. I don't mean to cuss. And I'm like, you guys, like, I get it. Like, I'm not this crew. Like, you can't cuss. I'm not like this Protestant nun that you can't cuss. So it's okay. But they're like, no, I'm sorry. I mean, I'll do better next time. Right. So when you are presenting yourself like a lady, men will recognize that, and they will move according to that. Even the lowest of low, like I don't have too many problems with uh, the quote unquote really bad boys. They give me a lot of respect as long as there's masculinity there. It's the ones that got the feminine energy inside of them that give me a problem. But on the higher levels, whether they're in their feminine or their masculine, there's not any problems, because they have the social skills. They know how to engage. They have the emotional intelligence to deal with situations that they're uncomfortable with. So, all right, I have another question. Miss Underwood, how long does it usually take for a woman to learn upper class social etiquette, feminine social graces, demeanor, speech? Let's see. I trained myself, my mother, my grandmother, and I remember one of my earliest grade school teachers. So I've been training all my life. I trained my daughter all of her life. For most women, you're going to have to take up to a year. It's going to take a year because there's going to be a lot of psychological um, undoing. So it's not just enough that you're learning how to talk and talking and being more graceful and classy and wearing the right things and being in the right places. You have to transform from the inside out. And I see Ted, as he said, they have to transform mindset first. That speeds it up. So once you work on your mindset and your thought process, then you can start to elevate. That usually takes more than just some social etiquette classes. You're going to need either some psychological therapy or some intense coaching, a lot of conversations about socioeconomic class, and mating strategies for that class. And you're also going to have to change your social circles. You're going to have to change your environments. That can take up to a year. Up to a year, as long as the conversations, the continuous conversations are happening and you're working on transforming your mindset. Once you focus on transforming your mindset, and when I tell you transforming your mindset, it's not just about, oh, I want to marry a man in a higher socioeconomic class. No, that is also accepting who those men are and understanding that it is marriage over anything else. It is compatibility over anything else, right? You had to have the mindset of, you want marriage, so you want the most compatible man. You want the best offer. And so you're not going to engage these men, and you're not going to vet these men and look at these men from the eyes of a woman in the lower socioeconomic class. Women in the lower socioeconomic class, they put a high price on looks. They put a high price on body. They put a high price on sex. And right now in 2023, you have looks and sex outpacing finances for women in the lower socioeconomic class, and sometimes women who are for women who are in the educated class. Why? Because they have not transformed their mindsets to elevate to a higher socioeconomic class. For women at the bottom, it's because they're breeding. They're breeding a lot, and they're breeding, and so they're looking for the best genetics, whether it's a man who is strong, a man who is good looking, a man who has muscles, a man who has a good hairline, he has thick hair, whatever, he has good facial features. She's breeding, so she's looking for the best mate in that class. So she's looking at face. They're also, because they're breeding and sex is valued, she's looking to have good sex. So women in the lower socioeconomic class, and fellas, that's how you can tell you're dealing with a woman in a lower socioeconomic class. If she puts a high price on looks and sex over compatibility. Sex and looks does not determine compatibility for marriage. So if she's concerned with that, you know what you're dealing with. Move on, red flag, right? Don't sit here and get down and depressed that these women don't want you. You're dodging a bullet. That's going to come with a lot of headaches and problems. So sex, looks, lower socioeconomic class. Women in the higher socioeconomic classes, men in the higher socioeconomic classes, they value compatibility. Do we align in values? Do we align in principles? Do we align in religion? Like, how are we going to look at religion? Raising children, the structure of the marriage. Do we align in that? And do we align in health and how we make judgments and how we make decisions? And that's why he's looking at women who are more physically fit. Because women who are more physically fit show that she's competent, she's making decisions, good decisions, and she cares about her family. So they have to be aligned in that. Yeah, sure. A poor bodybuilder guy in a lower socioeconomic class is going to get with the overweight, obese woman with money or some type of value, financial value that she can bring to him. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about, that's why I specifically started talking about men in the higher socioeconomic classes, because I got tired of trying to make it inclusive to everyone. And it just got exhausted because it's like, this is not the majority of men. Majority of men like fitter women. And the higher up they go, the more it is a requirement. That's just it. You're not going to get past it. If he already has his success, he's born and raised there, he's been in there in the higher socioeconomics for a while. He's looking for someone who aligns with him. And I'm telling you, ladies, that your judgment, your judgment, your decision skills, your brain, your intelligence, how you take care of yourself matters. Now, he may go for a woman who is a 5 and a 6, but she is intelligent, she is competent, she aligns with him, she has a great network, a great social circle, great body. And she's going to give him kids, and she's going to make him look good. She's going to make him look good to his friends, his colleagues. And that's important. You need to make sure he looks good to people, to others, because they are highly judged by their mates at that level. Let's see. Do you recommend taking a break from dating until you meet your fitness goals? I do. I do. Because it's not just fitness, it's also more than fitness. It's really starting with your mindset. So if you get your mindset right, if you focus on getting your mindset, transforming your mindset, then everything else will fall in place. Then you're going to want to get fit. You're going to want to start looking better, dressing better. You're going to want to upgrade your social etiquette, your social skills, your network, and your social circles. So it starts with your mindset. It starts with first, do you really want marriage? Do you really want marriage to a high value man? Do you really want marriage to a high man in the higher socioeconomic classes? And then why? Why do you want this? Right? It is very natural for women to practice hypergamy, to date and marry up. It is very natural for that to happen. So you have to figure out, why do you want this? And then you have to ask yourself, can you do it? Can you be that? And if you can be that, then you start the journey, you start the process. Because once you ask yourself, can you be that? And then you answer, yes, I can be that. Then that starts the process for you. And how that's going to look is, you're not going to give in to men in the lower socioeconomic class just because he's fine and he's sexy. Ladies, stop that. It's so frustrating when I have females who come to me and they're talking about they want to be with a high value man, but then they turn around and they reject the high value man because he doesn't have the sex appeal. And then they get with a dud, a dusty, because he's fine and he's sexy. And then guess what? That dud and that dusty didn't even offer her a committed relationship. So she walked away from the potential of being with a marriage-minded, high-value man to be with a dusty for sex. That is a horrible, horrible mindset to have. That is not going to lead you anywhere but heartbreak and probably pregnancy, children out of wedlock. So at first, you have to show distinction for the higher men in the higher socioeconomic class and men in the lower socioeconomic class. If you want to level up, you cannot affiliate. You can, outside of platonic friendships, but I kind of would say you don't need to be hanging around them platonically either. But you definitely don't want to be sleeping with them. You definitely don't want to mate with them. You don't want to have children with them. You don't want to date them. You should not be giving men in the lower socioeconomic class any time of day, any access to you if you desire marriage. Now, if you don't desire marriage, then they're probably perfect for you. If you don't want a different cultural lifestyle, they're probably perfect for you. So, but if you want something better, you're tired of being mistreated, you're tired of being played with, because high value men do not play games. They either want you or they don't want you. And they'll let you know, this is going, yeah, I want you, or it's not, I don't want you. They're not going to string you along and play games. They're going to tell you. And if you're messing up and if there's an issue, they're going to have that conversation with you. And then it's going to be on you to understand that there's a problem and that you need to have a conversation with yourself to figure out how to solve that problem. And they're going to give you time, but if you don't get it together, they will leave you. These are not men like the ones in the lower socioeconomic class. Like I said previously, they do not have a problem walking away from you. They have options. Lower class men do not have options. So they'll stay and they'll make you miserable, because then they'll start giving up, but they'll stay in a relationship because they want the consistency of sex. They know getting out here, they don't have that many options, and the likelihood of them getting sex is so far few in between. So they'll stick it out, but they're emotionally withdrawn from the relationship. So now you're miserable. Then, or they're cheating, right? They're cheating, or they're just becoming a-holes or jerks, right? So now you're miserable, and now you have to make a decision to leave or to stay. Whereas high value men won't put you through that. You're either going to be together, you're either going to be together or you're not going to be together. But it comes down to you. Because if he's marriage minded, he's on the market for marriage, he's going to take you seriously. Can you take him in the process seriously? So if you're tired of the back and forth and the headaches and all of the stuff that women are saying about men out here, then you need to switch gears. Stay away from low-hanging fruit. Stay away from men in the lower socioeconomic class. That's just that. I'm wondering why Ted has not joined me. Ted, why have you not joined me? I sent you the link. So stay away from those men. Stay away from poor broke men. Do not get. I don't care how much fun they're offering you. I don't care how exciting they can be. In the end, just stay away from them. Okay, let's see. Do you recommend that upwardly mobile, aspirational, high value men learn about socioeconomic class and business etiquette as they pursue that MD, JD, MBA on their way to professional career success? I do. But the thing about men is men tend to matriculate faster and better because they're logical thinkers. It's not based on their feelings. So they're assessing their surroundings and they adjust quicker, if that makes sense. They will adjust quicker. They're ambitious. They know what they want. So even the upwardly mobile young men who are not high value yet, but they will become high value at some point, they already know what they want. They are already reading the tea leaves. They're already seeing the forest through the trees. So they're even looking for women who can match that, who will be able to align with that. So if he's younger and he's on his way up, yeah, he's going to be looking for that. Um, Now that's different from an ambitious, high earning man. I'm not talking about them. Ambitious, high earning men are completely different. I'm not talking about them. They still would get with just about any woman as long as she offers what he needs, she's good to him, he'll get with someone. But he still doesn't know what he wants. A lot of men in the lower socioeconomic classes, they're so focused on survival that they really don't know what they want outside of what their needs are, what their needs are as far as getting them met for survival. Whereas high value men and men who are in the higher socioeconomic classes and they're on their way up, they're past that. They already know what they want. They already know what they need. They're building their lives and cultivating their lives to get to that goal. So it's beyond money at that point. It's about family, it's about status, it's about how he's going to look in society. So he's going to be choosing a woman based on that. The problem is there's just not enough women for those men to choose from. That's the biggest problem. The men are not the issue. The high value men, the men who are in the higher socioeconomic classes, the men who are on their way to being high value men, they're not really the issue. Those men have done the work. Women want them. The problem is the pool of women. So my goal is to help the women to qualify. I'm not saying you can't get it. That is not my ministry. My ministry is if you want it, I'm here to help you get it. I'm here to help you get it, but you have to be open and you have to be receptive. You have to want it. And you have to let go of what you thought you knew. You have to let go of your old mindset. That is going to be imperative. You're going to have to let go. And I know Ted is going to be like, what? We have these conversations. And sometimes I give him the hardest time about what he is saying to me at sometimes. And then I find myself repeating what he is saying. And I wish he was on the panel right now. I don't know where he's at. There he is. Hi, Ted.
Hola.
Welcome. I called your name and here you are.
Oh, it sounds like a song.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So I was just saying how, oh my gosh, I forgot what I was just saying. You caught me off guard when you popped in, so I forgot what I was saying.
I'm disruptive these
Yeah, you are.
days. So people have to excuse my voice. Had some stuff going on. Someone must have dropped some kryptonite over New York, and it got to me.
Oh boy.
But
You
I'm
still look good though.
thank you. Keep going. You were talking about social class and how men are more prepared because they're logical.
Do you think that's true? Do you think that men are more prepared to integrate and matriculate because they're more logical, or do you think it's easier for women, or do you think that women are more likely to integrate into the higher socioeconomic class?
We spoke about this last week, and there are cases where a black man is moving up in corporate America, and he creates his own self-imposed ceiling, and it's because of something you said a few minutes ago. You have to be willing to leave. If you come from a lower socioeconomic class, you have to be willing to walk away. It doesn't mean you have zero contact, but that's just not you're not surrounded by those people with whom you grew up. And so what they found was that, uh, some of the black men, I'm going to only talk about men, were resistant to rising up higher because the higher up they went, the less likely they were seeing people who look like themselves. So they started feeling guilty and like they were betraying the black community, and now they're being around whites. So they were kind of sabotaging themselves in their ability to move higher. And the corporation wanted to pull them up higher, but they just didn't want to go. So when they worked, not with a psychologist, with an executive coach, they helped them distinguish their blind spots and what was derailing them, and then they had to unlearn that, and it made it a lot easier for them to continue going up. But it was really a sense of, I'm abandoning my people if I move up and I'm just being around white people. So that is a problem. No, I can't hear you.
I didn't realize I was muted. So what is it for the women? Why don't the women? Why are they struggling?
So I have some things that I'd like to cover. And
Okay.
women are sold a lot more than what men are sold things too. And there are also images. So I'm as a listen, I'm in the business of producing miracles. CEOs hire me when they are looking to create a breakthrough and they're not sure how to do it with existing resources. And I work with them to create disruptive strategies that allow that breakthrough initiative to happen. And then I work with them to transform corporate culture to make sure the organization can successfully execute that initiative. So I, the short way is I'm an executive coach. But my real focus is on breakthroughs and having organizations do things they didn't know how to do in the past. So, regardless of race, one of the things that I've seen is, if we're just talking about men, the media, movies, the images you see of a CEO in a movie influences people. So, if it's influencing men, it's influencing women also. So women are being told things. So part of my job in working with CEOs is getting them to create their own idea of what it means for them to be a CEO, instead of them trying to be like this tough, hard-nosed guy that they saw in the movies from the 1950s or 60s, because that's not the best way to get the most out of your people. So there's a woman by the name of, and I'm not sure how she pronounces her first name, but it's Dame, Dame, Dame uh, Arentz. Let's see, Angela. She goes by Angela Arentz. Angela Arentz. She's the former CEO of Burberry's, and she, from what I know, did a great job. And I read an interview about her, and her interview kind of dispels what a lot of women are taught. So women are taught, don't focus on men, focus on your career, get your education, get your job. Even Michelle Obama told the girls, don't think about boys. But I think that's a mistake, because girls need to learn how to distinguish who the lousy guys are, the bad boys, and the guys who are marriage material. Don't wait until you are 30 years old to figure that out, because you'll have a lot of, I guess, heartbreak. So this Angela Arendt, as a CEO of Burberry, when they interviewed her, she said, I want to tell you what my priorities are. She said, first, I want to be a good wife. The second is a good mother to our two daughters. And the third is to be a good CEO. And throughout the article, she kept saying it in that exact order: a good wife, a good mother, and a good CEO. So she's married. I never met Angela. However, I do know a lot of women personally who are CEOs. I know the former CEO of Xerox, um, Anne Mulcahy, and I know that both she and her husband were hired by the former international CEO of Xerox. He told me that himself, that he hired both of them. Part of what I'm getting at is a lot of these women, they're married. Actually, all the white CEOs, female CEOs I know, they are all married, all of them. And they didn't get married when they became CEO. There's another woman I know who's CEO, publicly traded company, does more than 100 million. And she said she feels guilty because she doesn't want to demand that her husband drop their kids, their daughters off at school. She does it, and that means she gets in later than her direct reports. So she's focused on being a good mother, even though she's a CEO and she does her job well. She introduced me to another woman who is a CEO of a slightly larger company. And at some point, she stepped down as CEO because her husband was struggling with cancer. I'm saying all this because you're being taught to be a boss babe and you don't need a man. And yet, here are these successful women who manage being a great wife, a mother, and still the CEO of a company. Yet, and this is, you're asking me, this is part of the problem. Women are being told, you, yeah, I know there's a whole, you can have it all. Um, but I'm telling you about women who are clearly prioritizing, and they are putting their husband at number one. And a lot of women are being told men are irrelevant and just go get your degree and become a CEO, and you won't even need a man. But that's not what's happening in the higher social classes. So I'll stop with that.
I agree. I agree. And that's how you can tell the difference between those who are in the higher socioeconomic classes and those who are not, right? Marriage is valued at that level. And this is why I'm having the conversation with women who want marriage. And I know for a lot of Black women, they're struggling as to how to achieve that. And I am seeing a huge problem amongst the educated class of Black women, right? I see a lot of Black women who have gone to college, they've had that, they've heard that. Don't focus on any guys, don't focus on, get your degree. And now they're in their 30s and they're coming to me and they're like, Letitia, it hasn't happened. What am I going to do? And their struggles are coming from the fact that they have not transformed, right? Like I'm like, okay, you got the degree, but what? Right? What qualities did you gain to become a wife, to become a good wife? Um, what did you learn? Where did you learn it from? What are you doing? Like what who are you in proximity to? Who are you dating? Who are you socializing with? And it always leads back to the wrong type of men. And I'm not trying to say that men in the lower socioeconomic classes are all bad men. I'm just saying that when it comes to a certain group of women who desire marriage, their best course of action is to focus on men in the higher socioeconomic classes and to qualify for those men. And that's why I have this channel. Sorry guys, but my allergies are killing me. I got a dab in my eyes, my nose. I'm like, my allergies been going crazy. I have a gecko running around somewhere and I'm allergic to them. And I'm allergic to geckos, and one got in and it's messing with my allergies.
Wow.
Um, and so I think it's crawling on me at night, I swear. Um, I swear it was on my pillow. So I'm trying to help those women. And I know the conversation seems like men are saying these women can't qualify for these men. And I'm like, no, that's not true. They can. Because the pool of women, as far as when it comes to mates, is so small. So we have, I have to increase the pool. I would like to increase the pool of women so that you have more quality women for them to choose from than not quality women. And so the channel is for women who want to do it, right? They've gotten bad information, they got erroneous information, and I know especially Black women have gotten the wrong information. If anybody's watched the Ebony K. Williams thing that went viral, where she first went viral when she said she would not date a bus driver. She would only date the owner of the bus. So she was signaling that she was part of a certain socioeconomic class, and she was looking for a man who, if he didn't have that educational background, he still needed to be able to have some money. He had to come with money in order for her to get over that. And now she's saying, listen, I'm 40 years old. I'm having to go the in vitro fertilization route by myself. I'm going to be a baby mama because I was told to focus on the man. And even though I was married and even though I was engaged, I did not have the skills needed to become a good wife. So her first marriage failed. She let that go because she didn't value marriage, because she was never taught to value marriage. And then her engagement to a high society lawyer who actually came from the upper class, she couldn't hold on to him because she could not let go of her lower socioeconomic class thinking and behaviors. That mindset of, I don't need a man. She couldn't let it go. So she treated him as if she didn't need a man. So it's important for the women who are educated, and even the non-educated women who have their professional, they have their profession, they have their careers, they have their whatever you have going on, and you want better, you want marriage, you have to understand the importance of becoming a good wife. And I think that helps us definitely get on topic of the roadmap to dating men in a higher socioeconomic class, is the mindset of being a good wife, right? Having that mindset, having that heart, having that focus of wife first. That was so important what you said about the CEO woman. No matter what she was doing, she valued her role and her identity as a wife first.
Right.
And then she was going to make sure she put that above anything else, then a mother. And I think a lot of women struggle with that part. What? I'm going to be a wife first over a mother? Like, I have to be a good wife, then be a good mother? Well, to such men, yes. And that's why their divorce rates are much lower, because the compatibility and alignment is that those women understand wife is the most important role and identity that you will do and have. And so that you don't see them getting divorced. You don't see those men leaving their wives. You don't see the wives leaving their husbands in droves like that either. What do you say about that, Ted?
Uh, when you look at corporations, most of those guys are married before they even make it, to the executive. When I was working for a company, they kept urging me to marry the woman I had been dating for a while. So yes, they are married. They have lower divorce rates. So there's a guy who writes the book, The Millionaire Next Door. I think his name is Tom Stanley, and he did an enormous amount of research about the affluent classes and what they do and don't do. And he said, uh, while the mainstream marriage rates are dropping, the affluent class hasn't dropped, and divorce rates have always been very low. And most people think the divorce rates are low because of money. People don't want to let go of money. He said it had nothing to do with that. What he found was that it was compatibility. They were better at, I'm going to say the word people don't want to hear. They were better at interviewing a spouse and knowing who was compatible. And they're doing this in college. They're not waiting until they're 30. Now, there has been a surge in women getting married after 30, but they still are marrying someone who's compatible. One of the things they found is, like, some of these women who are attorneys and have high IQs, they make sure they marry a guy who has a high IQ, and then they raise their children in environments that foster high intelligence, ambition, um, you know, security around self, great physical and mental health. So yes, compatibility is important. And college is a great place to find someone. In the if you don't get married in college, what often happens is two attorneys are on opposite sides of the table, and they get married. I went to a birthday party to a woman she's a former judge, and one of the attorneys at her party told me she's does like land development and planning, and she met a guy who that's all he did. She did it as an attorney, but he was a land developer and planner from an architectural perspective. And she met him doing a deal and they got married. So this happens more than people realize. So either it's in college you're getting married because you're looking for someone who is smart and has ambition, and you need to be able to assess who's going to be most compatible and have a great future, or you meet them once you're already in your profession.
I agree. So I have some people going to want to join. If you're going to join the panel, please make sure that you have a picture or you're coming on camera or you have a picture of yourself before you can join the panel, before you join the stage. Um, so Ted, you wrote a book. Here's why you can't find love. Can you give us some details on that book and why you wrote it?
Sure. I wrote it because relationships, marriages are not working. One of the things most people don't realize is that corporate America is losing 300 billion, that's billion, $300 billion every year in workplace productivity. And they're losing that because of divorce and bad relationships. And because, and this is not my opinion, these are people have sat down and did the math on this. And they also found that when a person is dealing with divorce, their workplace performance drops by 50 to 75%. So people are distracted when they're dealing with marriage. People get married not with the intent to get divorced, and divorce is not it's not a happy moment in a person's life. So most marriages, meaning over 50% of marriages, fail. So part of the problem, I would say, is why so many marriages fail is because people go into relationships looking for love, which is completely backwards. You're looking for this good feeling, this fairy tale movie. In the same way people look to CEOs and corporations for how to be a CEO, they look to movies for how to be in love and how to have a great relationship. And in 90 minutes or 2 hours, the movie shows boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. But they never actually show you how to create a great relationship. So lots of women walk around believing things magically happen, especially in their 20s. So the book I wrote is here's why you can't find love. It's because you're looking for it. Instead of looking for love, look for a person who knows how to create a great relationship. And that means you too need to know how to create a great relationship so you're compatible. Once you know how to create a great relationship, all the elements that create a great relationship become your foundation, and love is built on top of that. So if you're compatible, you're with someone who is great at conflict resolution, they understand you, you understand them, eventually you have an affinity for that person, and that grows to love. And that's how people in upper classes are staying together because they're not going in looking for this feeling. They're looking for someone who's compatible, someone who I can actually build with, create a great relationship with them. And without those facts of can I build with this person, then I'm just looking for a good time girl or the good time guy.
All right, thank you for that, Ted. So you can purchase the book Here's Why You Can't Find Love. It is still available on Amazon.com. Ted, you might need some tea to help with that cough. I know you're trying to cover it. I can see you need some tea.
I'm just expelling some fluid from my lungs. It'll be gone soon. Be gone.
All right, so ladies, if you want to come up and ask a question, you have two experts. Me, I'm a professional matchmaker. Ted is an author, and he also works in corporate America with these exact men. Um, he works with a lot of CEOs, and this is the time to ask your questions, get your questions asked, and engage in the conversation. Um, so click the link that's pinned at the top to join the panel. But we do have one question that came in from Lady T.
Wait, before you get to that, I want to. There were a couple of things that I want to address. If you do, so one is there's a guy who's climbing the corporate ladder in a business. The other guy who can be this upper class. Maybe he had a job and now he's going out to be an entrepreneur. A lot of I want to say 100% of the entrepreneurs I know who built significant, like uh, millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, and they still are in the role of CEO. Every last one of them are married, and every last one of their wives work in their company. They do something. Their wives support them. If that sounds like work for you and you don't want to be bothered, you probably don't want to be with an entrepreneur, because if he's smart and you have certain skills that can support him, he's going to want you to help him. He just will.
Okay, was that all?
So
No, I'm just I'm like I'm trying to. I didn't know if you were done.
no, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything to that, but there's a whole another point that I want to address. So if you understand, these are ambitious men. They're moving up corporate America. They are successful entrepreneurs. The other thing you're going to have to acknowledge. So if you were lied to about you don't need a man and get your education and your job and the men will bow at you, and the women who are CEOs are telling a very different story. The other thing is you may have been lied to about men and men not being very smart. They're just simple minded and all they need is sex. These guys in the more affluent classes, whether they were born into them or they were trained into them, they are intelligent. And if you deal with them as though, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or I'm smarter than you, and he talks to you about something you don't even know about, and you're trying to be combative with him about something you don't even understand, you're disqualifying yourself. So the first thing is you're going to have to acknowledge that these are very, very intelligent men who know what they're talking about. They don't have to know everything. One of the things about being a good entrepreneur or an executive is you surround yourself with people who are usually smarter than you. I mean, this is why guys like Henry Ford and John D. Rockefeller and even Howard Hughes, Steve Jobs, they were so successful, they didn't have to know everything. They knew how to hire really smart people, and then they knew how to get the best out of them. So they're not only are they intelligent, they've been sort of primed to be good leaders. And so if you're trying to test them on leadership based on your impression of leadership from the movies, uh, you're probably going to be testing them inappropriately and not know what to really look for. Uh, yeah. So if you just you're treating them like you believe they don't know what they're talking about, they won't keep you around very long. I mean, if you're really, really physically attractive, you'll get some time, but your time is going to be limited. And when they're ready to pull the plug on the relationship, you're gone, and they won't think twice about it because they've already left the relationship. Or the last thing guys like that want is a woman who doesn't know how to stand for them, and that becomes important. And the next thing, if you understand they're intelligent, they're ambitious, and if you work with them in their business, that gives you an advantage because if you work in the business, you really understand the business. And as Letitia was talking about networking, it puts you in a better position that you understand the business and you can really go out and advocate for your man. If you're not doing that, um, some guys will question why they need you around. I mean, if it's just to have babies, you're like making yourself like a surrogate. um, I'll say the one unfortunate thing for the average black man, he doesn't understand the value of a woman who has great social skills and knows how to advocate for him and network for him. A lot of black men say, "Oh, I can do that myself." Well, you're competing against other races of men who have women who do that and they do it well. And I've seen it. I've seen like really successful men, and sometimes their largest client is because their wife was a soccer mom and she networked with the other soccer moms and said, "Well, what does your husband do? What does your husband do?" And when she met the woman who she thought was a match for her husband, which means she had to understand, like really understand her husband's business, she made friends with that woman, invited that woman and her husband to their house. She cooked a great meal. The husbands went and smoked cigars, and her husband closed a deal, and their lifestyle was elevated. But she had something to do with that. Why would any man divorce, or, you know, why would any man want to leave a woman like that? She's worth more than her weight in gold. So, um, and but on the opposite end, and this is, you'll say anecdotal, but I know it's not the only. I had a buddy in college who was moving up in a consulting firm, and his boss invited him to dinner at his house, at the boss's house, and the wife was going to cook. But my buddy was married to a woman who was kind of terrified of people in the upper classes. So as her husband was moving up the ladder, she became more and more uncomfortable and she didn't want to go to the dinner. She killed his upward mobility. There were even some other moves, like they lived in Brooklyn and he was working in Newark, New Jersey, and he wanted to get an apartment in Newark so he could work longer hours and be more accessible to the company. And the wife was like, "Oh, we have children. I'm going to feel like a single mother." Like, these are things you're going to have to be comfortable with. I know tons of CEOs who either, as they're moving up the ladder, they relocate city after city, sometimes internationally. And I've had clients who lived in New York and their wife lived in Boston or Philadelphia, and he went to see his family on the weekends. If you can't live with that, you're going to be um, you're going to work against the guy who has great possibility, and you'll be his downfall. So, and this is getting back to saying, if you don't believe he knows what he's talking about and what he's doing, then you will work against him. So if you understand he's intelligent, he's competent, he's competent not just in his professional life, even in his home life and what he wants to see, his vision for his family. If you're working against that because you don't understand what happens and that level of socioeconomic class, you'll be working against him because that's not how you were raised, which gets me to what Letitia's been talking about, is transforming mindset, unlearning the things that you learn. Just going in and knowing the right way to, which fork to use at a 7-course meal, and the right way to, posture yourself. That's not going to do it, because there are times when things are not going your way. And who you are is not the etiquette. Who you are is what your environment taught you to be. And that's all you have. And if you haven't unlearned it, you're going to unleash it on him. You may unleash it on the wives of his colleagues, because they don't think you belong. So they might poke and prod at you until it comes out and you kill his chances. Now he looks like a poor decision maker. So before you start worrying about, well, do I know the proper etiquette and do I know how to get the ring? You're going to have to unlearn kind of everything you know. And that, Letitia was asking me about For men, a lot of times you might feel like you're abandoning your family. So you're going to have to make a choice for your own life. Are you going to live your life for your the hood, your neighborhood, and you don't want to seem white or whatever conversation they are living with? That's not your problem.
And it's not just black people. Lower class non-blacks have that problem too of leaving where they're from. You don't want to feel like you're abandoning where you're from. You're abandoning your people because again, you're considered booted, you're considered bougie, elitist, and you're forgetting where you came from. But you said something so profound, and you said unlearning what you where you from unlearning what you came from essentially because your environment will make or break what you learned in your environment will make or break um and that's what this channel is all about. It's more than just, I mean, you can just type in YouTube about etiquette and learn etiquette,
Right.
but it's so much more than that because if you don't transform your mindset when you get in these environments and things get tricky and things get, and if they, they're like, oh, where you from, and they will poke and prod to see if you belong. They will test you. The women will definitely test you to see if you belong. And so it's more about going through the paces, transforming your mind to make sure that you're feeling comfortable, you're feeling confident, and you know that you're there, you know that you belong there. And you said something, you said where the guy's wife, she was not comfortable, and so she was holding him back essentially.
Absolutely.
And I see, and that happens a lot. That happens more than people think. Like women, you get uncomfortable when you go to a gala. First off, you're going to be uncomfortable if you are, you're looking at all these women and they're in their gowns, and you're a 30 something year old woman, you haven't had any children yet, and you're relatively young, and you're looking at the women older and younger than you, and they're all looking like they have 4 kids, but they're all looking like they didn't have any kids, and you're looking like you've had 4 or 6 kids. You're going to feel uncomfortable. So, in that uncomfortable, when you're uncomfortable, it's going to come out. You're going to get defensive. You're going to start being testy. The anxiety is going to be there. The fear is going to be there. So, you want to start with making sure that, what are you doing?
And you don't want to have that tattoo across your chest that
Yes, you don't
you're
want any of that.
out of it. But when you get there, it's like, oh, she doesn't belong here.
Right. So it's like all of the things that you've learned in your previous environment, you have to unlearn that stuff. Like you have to learn to let it go. Like not everybody knows what fork to use, and that's okay. But but if you are acting as if when your behaviors and your mindset comes out at the table or at a setting, then that's when they're going to be like, who is this person? Like, why are you here? Like, we don't care that you don't know the forks, right? We don't care that you don't know which goblet to use. We don't care that you don't put your napkin in your lap, but we do care at the fact that you can't even engage in a conversation without being loud. You can't engage in the conversation without not cutting someone off. You cannot have a discourse without being vulgar or crass or being out of pocket. But I wanted to get touch back on what you said where the wife was too anxious and she didn't want to go.
Right.
um and that right there, like that also speaks to, well, what is she not willing to do for the kids, right? If you're not willing to socialize in these social circles, that means you're going to take your children back to the environments to which you came from, and your kids going to be socialized based on that environment, which is going to hinder their prospects for this new environment, because those men are going to reject those women coming from even though they're a part of that class, they're not going to align their families with children who have that type of mindset, because again, those children, those sons are going to be looking at, okay, I got to marry her for she's carrying my father's last name, she's going to continue my father's legacy, and you're taking your child back to certain places, and now they have this mindset that is completely different, and we see it all the time, like Lori Harvey, all of these young ladies who are raised in these upper class culture, and yet the way that they're engaging and behaving is so far removed from that. But the expectation is that they'll get it together and they'll straighten out. But then you don't want to end up with the low hanging fruit. So it is important that, ladies, that you, this is what I want to touch on. You start to cultivate your interests and your hobbies based on the type of man that you want. So, the things that, just hanging out at the bar, hanging out all night, going to the bar, going on your girls' trips, all that is going to have to end. When it comes to hobbies and interests, you're looking at more of the higher value, higher elevated hobbies and interests. And it's not just about getting yourself used to and comfortable with being in that lifestyle and those social circles, but that's where you're likely to meet those men as well. If you're on the ski slopes, right, and you're looking good, you got the little ski outfit on, you're likely to run into men who are interested in those things, and men with money are the ones who go skiing. Skiing is part of it's even, it's just family vacations happen on the ski slopes, right? Family vacations happen in family oriented environments where there's rich in culture. So you want to go to places when you are traveling, you want to go to places that are rich in culture. When it comes to your interests, charities, right? I don't care if you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, or an independent, but get involved. Get involved with your local charities, volunteering. Not only that, but it helps you to build up your network. It helps you with these social skills. When you go to galas, you're around people, you're talking to these people, you start to learn the language. And this is why I say I can tell if someone comes from the higher socioeconomic classes or the lower socioeconomic classes just from their language. And language is not just the words that they speak, it's who they're being. It's who they're being. And I can tell, and just through conversation, I can tell. So I know you're smiling because you like that. Um, when you are when you're constantly putting yourself in proximity to these men and you're doing these things and you're engaging with other women in these social who are also engaging in these activities and these interests and these hobbies, you're going to learn the language. You're going to start speaking the language, which then starts the transformation process. But I don't want to I want to get to the question that Lady T asked. And she asked, I want a man that looks like me, and I'm guessing from her picture she's black, but I'm struggling to find one that wants marriage and the responsibilities of a family. I'm having more luck with other races, and I'm not sure how to get around this. So, did you want to answer that first, or should I?
Where's she going?
That was the question I was going to ask. I was going to ask, so where are you meeting men? Because again, men in the lower socioeconomic, so two things are happening. You're either meeting men in the lower socioeconomic classes, and as I said, they're not likely to want marriage. So that if you're dating in that lane, then you're going to come across majority of those men are not interested in marriage anytime soon. Or you're meeting men in the higher socioeconomic classes, and they have determined that you don't qualify for marriage. So you have to, if you're meeting men in the higher socioeconomic classes, then you have to start asking yourself and having conversations with yourself as to what is causing them to reject the black men in those in at that socioeconomic level to reject you. You have to understand distinction between a high earner who is from a lower socioeconomic class. So just because he has money does not mean he's from a higher socioeconomic class. Again, this is where language comes into play. If he is talking about, oh, I don't want marriage, I just, I don't believe in roles, and I don't, we don't put a title on things, and he's fine with having children out of wedlock, he's fine with cohabitating. That is a man who's likely from the lower socioeconomic class who leveled up financially. So either leveled up through hard work or he leveled up through his education. But that was not a value system instilled in him. If you are coming across a man who comes from a good background, he comes from a solid family, he is educated, he is a professional, He was born and raised in the higher socioeconomic classes, whether he has money or not, and he is signaling to you that he's not interested in marriage, the problem is you. And I'm sorry to say that the problem is you, because they are bred to desire marriage. Now, if you're in your 20s, he may not be that serious. If you're in your early 30s, he may not be that serious, but he's going to at least want a serious relationship. He's not going to play around with you.
She
So you
said
got,
work in my social circle. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what she does for work, and I don't know what her social circle is. That doesn't help.
okay, so Lady T, what do you mean by work and your social circle? So what do you do for work? This would be easy if you just came up on to stage. We could answer the question. So what do you do for work, and what do you mean by your social circle? And when we say social circle, what types of things do you do in your social circle? What types of things do you and your friends do as far as having fun and socializing? Because if y'all are just, you're what you're doing as far as socialization says a lot about your socioeconomic class as well. Okay, so you click the link up top, scroll up to the very top of the comments, click the link, and then it's going to bring you to the StreamYard app, and you can join the panel. Then you don't have to come on camera, but please have a picture up.
That way, that link works. I don't know. Live viewer.
Yes, that link works. You got here,
You sent me one in an email.
huh?
You sent me a text.
Oh, yeah, but that was the same link I sent you.
Mhm.
Yeah, because somebody else had came up and I told him that they had to come on camera before they can actually come to the stage. And he said he doesn't have a pic. I said he had to have a picture or come on camera, and he didn't want to do either. So he said he would just sit back and listen. So the link works.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah. So, and I think that's a part that people don't understand, Ted, is that finances alone does not determine your socioeconomic class. It's about your family, your social circle, your hobbies, your interests, your mindset, thought process. All of those things play a
Where
part.
did you grow up? Really, where did you grow up? Because where you grew up is going to have a lot to do with the kind of activities your parents had you engage. Uh, so, my mother had us taking tennis lessons, golf lessons. We knew how to swim, but she had us take swimming lessons, so we became better swimmers. We traveled out of the country when I was a child. Uh, music lessons, music theory, uh, language. All of my parents had four children, and all of us speak a second or third language, and some of us can say things in maybe eight or nine other languages. So we've all been out of the country as adults. So sorry. Um,
Take a sip of water.
so what if you're in certain communities, and going away to camp, we've been to camps, and in those camps, you learn all kinds of things. They're educational.
So Tard, welcome to the stage. Do you have a picture that you can put up so we're not looking at a blank screen?
Yes, I do. I just have to figure out how to do that.
Okay, so there's three little dots that you click on, and it says edit audio avatar, and it will let you put up a picture. Oh, okay, maybe she's got to do that. Okay, that is something that, yes, that's important. Like, I've noticed that men in the middle classes and up, staunch middle class, their hobbies, their interests as children, their lifestyle as children are going to be completely different than that of the lower socioeconomic class. Um, a lot of the lower socioeconomic classes are about survival and just enjoying the moment, right? Based on what you have, because you don't have a lot. So there's a lot of partying, a lot of backyard barbecues, um, things of that nature. A lot of the socialization comes through school. The kids get socialized through school. Not saying that there aren't any exceptions, because I know some parents who, like my dad, took us to museums and things of that nature. I got trips to the ballet, social etiquette, and all those other things I was privy to as a young girl. Museums, orchestra, symphony, all of those things. I played an instrument. I played the violin in grade school. Um, so a lot of those things, but I know that and understand that I'm an exception when it comes to. So it's like when it comes to adult males, the one thing that I found is that if he's stuck at, well, I like hanging out with my friends in the man cave and going to the bar, and we're hanging out there, and that's all he does, and he doesn't travel, he hasn't really been anywhere. Likely you're dealing with a man with money, but he's from the lower socioeconomic class. Men who are born and raised in the higher socioeconomic classes, their interests and hobbies are just they're all about culture. It's about culture. It's not about survival. It's about culture. It's about well-roundedness. So the children are educated and taught very early on about culture, and culture deals in music, food, language, and socializing. So,
Yeah,
and okay, so we have
plays
Terry.
have plays too. You see those plays, and those some of those plays are great displays of cultures that are very different from your own. So it's great exposure.
All righty, Tara. Well, thank you. Welcome back. So we have some questions for you to get an understanding so that we can better help you. Is that okay?
Yes, yes. I did miss some of it going in and out, so I do apologize.
You're fine.
Okay, so Ted, did you want to start?
Sure. What do you do for a living?
Yes, so I work for a tech company as a program manager.
Okay. What does that mean, a program manager?
So I work for a tech company, pretty much the number one CRM, and I learn all of the softwares that we because I want to be discreet as possible as far as where I work, but I pretty much learn
Do you
all the
code?
softwares.
Do you code? You code?
It's a non-code, but it is a technical operational
Well, so
role.
you can write algorithms or code. You don't do that, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct, correct,
So you implement and maintain, manage software systems, large scale, correct?
correct.
Okay, I understand. Right. And you manage, I guess, an IT department, or
I don't manage, so it's a non-managerial.
you manage a group of techies. Is that what? That's what I meant to say.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, not an IT department. You are the IT department.
I'm the SME between IT and operations.
Oh, that's good. You speak two languages. That's. So you. I'm just curious. Does that mean you're part of strategy sessions or no?
Yes, so business, pretty much artificial intelligent business strategy is something that I am currently doing.
Okay. Do you interface with clients?
My clients are mainly internal clients, and then the clients that I work with internally, I'm pretty much prepping them to work external with their external clients.
How many people in the company?
Over 100,000.
Oh, so that's a big. That's okay. So you're a Fortune 500 company, and you
Yes,
guys are international. You're global, correct?
correct.
Okay. So that means there are a lot of smart men in that company. Some of those men do write code, right? Some of them have computer engineering backgrounds, mathematics, physics, right? You have all that in the company, correct?
Most of them are, yes.
Yeah. And most of them don't look like you, as that was your comment. You want someone who looks like you, correct?
Yes, yes.
That's a problem. How about when you see clients?
Most of them still at
Okay,
with my level, yeah, at my level, the ones that pretty much I work with are one level below me, and they most of them don't look like me.
okay. And where'd you grow up?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Where you grew up in Atlanta? Because people just say Atlanta and they never lived in Atlanta. So,
Yeah, yes, I definitely understand that. So I grew up in the suburbs, so Latonia.
okay. And what is that suburb like? Tell me about it. Average selling price for a home, and how much land? What's the average size of a home and lot size? square footage of the home and lot size?
I couldn't actually tell you that, to be honest with you. I spent a lot of my younger years in Lithonia, and then I moved to Conyers, Covington in my teenage years. But I
Okay.
did catch a little bit of what you guys were mentioning earlier. So I can kind of give you a little background more so about me. I think you mentioned about
Wait,
the
wait, wait.
upbringing.
So when you, yeah, that's what I want to understand. So the
Yes.
where you lived as a teenager, was that more condominiums? Were these homes with lawns? What were the demographics of the people in that town?
Yeah. So I've always lived in a house with a lawn.
Okay,
Pretty much it was really suburbs. I never lived in an apartment.
okay, okay. Right. And do you know the square footage of the home you lived in?
No, I personally don't know, but I can tell you the amount of bedrooms. We always lived in big houses. I'm one of 10. So
Uh,
my parents did marry young, and they did. They're pretty much. They didn't separate until I was in my junior year of college, and I'm the youngest of 10.
oh, wow. And what do your parents do for a living?
Trades. So my mother was in culinary. She worked for the government, and my father was a carpenter.
Okay. Um, and you're number 10. Wow, that's what's the age difference between you and the oldest? Just curious.
18.
Wow, that's huge. And so your social circle, do you still live in Atlanta, the Atlanta area currently?
Yes, so I live just outside of Atlanta. So technically, well, Sandy Springs to be specific.
Okay. And in the where you grew up from a teenager, was that primary? I wanted to understand the demographics. Was that primarily black? Was it mixed? Was it all, white, all racial groups? What was it?
In my younger years, so elementary and middle school, primarily black. I grew up in a pretty much a very higher class black suburban neighborhood, and I
Mm,
also went to charter schools. And then in high school, it was pretty much mixed. Covington and Conyers at the time was fairly mixed. Compared to where I stay now, which is it's predominantly a Jewish community.
okay. Right. And so your social circle is from your younger years or your teenage years, or your social circle is very Jewish. What is it?
Uh, it's a mixture. It's a mixture because I went to a PWI, so
I don't know what a PWI is.
predominantly white school. So I went to a predominantly white school
Oh,
for college for undergrad, and so it's pretty mixed. I do have friends from all areas of my life: elementary, younger years to high school to undergrad. To I do have some friends like in adulthood as well that I've
Did,
accumulated.
did you pledge to a sorority?
I did not. Well, I did not do a sorority. I did a fraternity, a professional.
and which school did you attend?
Kennesaw State.
What's it called?
Kennesaw State
And where's that located?
in Kennesaw, Georgia.
Okay. And I assume you majored in computer sciences or something like that.
Business with a minor in computer.
I repeat that. You were not very clear.
Sorry. Yeah. So I majored in business and I
Okay,
minored in information systems.
got it, got it. And so your social circle is mixed. So that does that mean most of the people that with whom you socialize are in and just curious, how old are you, by the way?
28.
Okay. And so most of the people in your social circle, they're around your age and they are at your level of success in business.
No, they are indeed around my age. Very few of them are at the level that I'm at, but a lot of them are in corporate America.
Okay. All educated.
Most, yes, most are educated.
Okay. And just curious, your social circle, men and women.
Yes, men and women.
Now, out of the men in your social circle, How many of them would you marry?
Two.
Was that an answer? I didn't. I'm not sure. It was like a
Out of the men in my social circle, probably would marry two, but of course I wouldn't marry those two for reasons, but I would marry two, and just based on the type of men that they are.
okay. And you think they represent the kind of social class that you want to be part of, or are they more of an up and coming?
They're more of an up and coming.
Okay. So if I tell you I'm confused,
Mhm.
uh, will you understand why?
But I can kind of see where
Well,
it's.
you're muffled. I didn't hear like you were in a car running away from me. I don't understand.
Sorry, I am in the car. I just parked, so I do apologize. But I can kind of see where the confusion may be, but if you could clarify for me a little bit more
Where do
as
you
to
think
why.
where do you think the confusion is for me?
Um, maybe with the assumption that I have two, at least in my my social circle, and that I am not seeing them as valuable candidates to marry.
Okay. So how would you think your social circle would be able to make a qualified man available to you if those men themselves are not qualified?
That's a good question. They won't be able to.
Yeah, I'm really just confused about that. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, wouldn't that kind of speak to the issue, right? Like, if your social circle is made up of uh, young black men, but they're not at the status that you are or the status that you would like to be at, they're not going to offer marriage. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Tara, let me ask you, so you're 28. Do you have any kids?
I do.
How many children do you have?
I just have one.
And have you ever been married?
No, I was engaged to her father.
Okay. And what did her father do? Or what does he do?
We were high school sweethearts. So he currently works.
no, you're
Sorry.
muffled. You're muffled. We didn't hear that. High school
Can you?
sweethearts and what?
Yep. So can you hear me better? Just want to make
Yes.
sure. Yep. So we were high school sweethearts. And what he currently does is he manages auto shops.
What do you mean? He worked out of the corporate office for auto for like Pet Boys or something?
He's a regional manager for, I'm not sure, it's not Pet Boys, it's another one that falls under the Icon Automotive
No,
brand.
no. Yeah, I was just giving as an example. So that he worked out of corporate and he managed a region of.
No.
Yeah,
So, okay. Does he have a college degree?
no,
Okay, so no, he worked his way up to this position.
yes,
Okay, so he's basically blue collar working class. What did he do
yeah.
before he got this?
He pretty much worked his way up, so he knows how to work on cars and all of
Okay.
that.
Okay, so basically blue collar. Um, and how did you so how did he grow up? Did he grow up in the middle class? Because it sounds like you grew up middle class.
Yeah, yes, technically yes, he grew up in a two-parent household, but he's also of a different ethnicity. So he's Hispanic. So I want to say no, but he grew up with the same values as I did as far as family.
Okay, and why didn't you guys get married?
Cultural differences.
On whose part?
Our parents, they didn't agree to us being married at the time, and from there it just it just had a huge impact on our relationship, and we just didn't work out from there. But it was no foul or anything like that. It just didn't work out. Cultural differences. My mom didn't really approve of it, um, and his parents kind of showed disagreement as well.
He wanted you to be a stay-at-home mom.
Um,
That's a yes or no.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Did he want you to be a stay-at-home mom? I don't know if she disappeared or not.
No.
that was a part. It was a part of it.
No, just yes or no. Did he want you to be a stay-at-home mom?
No, not 100%. No.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you want that?
I did want to stay. I did want to take care of the kids. I did want to have more kids. But what was being offered, what was being told to me was pretty much coming from his family, and my family were pretty much back and forth. Were in disapproval of it, and we were pretty young at the time. So
How old were you when you had your when you found that you were pregnant?
17.
Okay, so your child is 11, 10 years old, 10 or 11?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now fast forward, you're in corporate America, you're in tech, and you're desiring to get married now. Let me ask you, what is the age group as far as what you're interested in dating?
Right now, upwardly to 40.
Okay. And what does he have to do? Like, what are you looking for as far as how much he makes and what does he do for a living?
I'm pretty much open as far as what he does specifically for a living, because I valued my father growing up, so I'm okay with pretty much a blue collar man, but just one that has ambition to want more out of life. As far as the number amount, I would say decent for a single person in the Atlanta area would probably be around 60 to 70.
Okay, but he's got to take on you and he's got to take on your child. So, are you going to continue to work if you're married?
If the option is to not have to work, I would definitely not choose not to work.
Okay, but if the fact that he only makes 60,000 and your income is necessary, you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to work or don't you want to work?
I don't mind working. If I mean, it's yeah, I don't mind working. I don't really know how to answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's really a yes or no, but that's okay. Um, okay, so if you don't mind a blue collar worker, are you dating men who are part of the blue collar class?
I do. And most of them don't make that amount. They make way more than that amount.
Of course. Right.
Okay, so then what is the struggle? So these men don't want marriage.
They don't. Yeah, they don't want marriage.
Yeah, that's so I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not do and wait, so let me ask, do these men already have kids themselves?
No.
Okay. So I'm gonna be honest with you and give you some hard truth. Back in 2003, the Bush administration did a study because the amount of women having kids out of wedlock and depending on welfare was just astronomical. It was becoming a huge problem. It was becoming an epidemic. So they did a study to try to figure out how to get single mothers, women who had unwed children, children out of wedlock married, right? They were pushing family values. The study came back saying that the likelihood of a woman having children out of wedlock being married or getting married to a higher caliber man was basically zero, unless she has some uh, ex- extenuating circumstances, meaning she's extremely beautiful, right? Or he's much older and not really looking to have kids or something of that nature. For those women, the likelihood of them getting into a relationship was going to be a lesser caliber man, and at best end up in a cohabitating situation. So what you are experiencing is what they came to realize all the way back in 2003, that you're getting with men who are of lesser caliber, meaning not meaning that they're bad men, but they don't have as high as value on the mating market. And all of those men are just interested in offering you is cohabitation at best, because I'm sure they're going to be willing to move in at some point. They just don't want the legal responsibility of marriage, because they don't want the legal responsibility of another man's offspring. So that's that's your problem. You're being a mother, having a child, a young mother having a child out of wedlock is what's going to be difficult for you. So it's either you're going to, not, oh my God, I'm like do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to throw you, I'm just trying to give you the facts and get you to understand that even 20 years ago, they saw this problem happening. And what you're experiencing is exactly what the government is saying. So cohabitation is, at best, is what is being offered to women who have children. So then I would ask you, how tall are you?
5'6", and I guess to answer your question, I've I've kind of accepted that, so you're not hurting my
Okay.
feelings. I'm okay.
Okay. So you're 5'6". How much do you weigh?
135.
And how much do you make each year?
125.
125. Okay. So you're making 125, and you're okay with a man making 60,000, and he's blue collar, but you draw the line at cohabitation. Why?
Because I don't want to have it. I want more kids, but I don't want to have any more kids out of wedlock and do the same thing over.
Okay, do you understand that for men, for the most part, that they don't look at it that way? They see it as you did not value it enough to where it wasn't a requirement before, so why does it have to be a requirement now? Not saying that you can't have it as a requirement. I'm just trying to get you to understand how men would look at this, especially men without kids. Are you interested in dating a man with kids?
Yes.
Okay. What if he doesn't want any more kids? Because sometimes once they have kids, they're at that level, they're done having kids.
I am learning to accept that at this point. At this point, I'm I'm growing to accept that I may not have any more kids.
Okay. So let me ask you another question. What do these men look like? Are they men that women would qualify as good looking?
Yes.
Okay. So there is the problem. Men with options, men who other women would want, are not likely to settle down with a woman who has children by another man. If you are really serious, I personally don't think you should be settling for a man making $60,000 a year because you have a child and you want more children. You don't have to be with a man who makes so much little than you. You actually can find you a blue collar worker who makes that amount. You actually can find you a blue collar worker who is willing to marry you, but you're going to have to engage in that transformation mindset process that I was talking about earlier, meaning how you go about choosing your man has to be different, meaning what's more important, marriage or looks, right? How he look like he can rip your clothes off and throw you down on the bed and give you passionate sex, or the fact that he is going to be a good provider and take care of his family. that man is not going to come in the way of a man who has already determined that he doesn't want to marry you, but you're looking at him because he's good looking, he's tall, and he's good looking. Your best route is to only deal with men who want you and who want to marry you. And there are going to be some black men who do want to marry you, and they're making more than $60,000 a year, but they're not going to be tall and they're not going to be good looking. He's going to be the guy that I consider non-select, and he's not going to have a lot of options out there. But he's going to look at you and he's going to say, because I'm looking at your PTR, you're an attractive woman. And for him, you bring enough added value as far as your looks, your intelligence, your education, that can possibly overcome the deficit of having a child. So whether he is a blue collar worker, high earning, or he is on a lower scale, much lower scale of white collar, but you have to get past. I think your problem is that you are trying to have it all, and you're sacrificing in areas you don't have to sacrifice in. You're like, well, he doesn't have the money, but he has to have the looks that I want. Like, as long as he's good looking, because I know that's what's going on with a lot of women. As long as he's good looking, he's sexy, he's high, I want to have sex, good, raunchy, rough sex with passionate sex with him, then his money doesn't matter. You need to flip that, because you have a child and you want to have more children. So you have to get with a man who is willing to step up and accept the role of being the provider and taking on a family, an already made family. Does that mean you're going to get a high value, high caliber man? Unfortunately, not likely. Not saying it's impossible, but the likelihood of that happening is not high. But you don't have to get the lowest of the low either. You just have to be more strategic. Your man is probably going to be much older. He's going to be older than 40. He's probably going to be about 50. He's going to be 50 plus. He's going to have a good job. He's going to have good benefits. He'll probably give you another kid. He's probably have all these kids, but he'd be willing to give you another one because you're still quite young. But he's going to be older and he's going to make good money. And he's not going to necessarily be a looker. Not saying you have to get with somebody you got to put a bag over their head, but he's not going to be that hot man that you're going to show off to everybody on social media and to your family. And so your priorities have to straighten up. Do you want marriage? Do you want marriage as bad as you say you do? Then you have to only deal with the men who say that they want that, and the men who are willing to give it to you. You have to choose the best out of that bunch. And I know you say you want a black man, but sometimes you have to go where you're wanted if you want marriage. You've already done the interracial dating, right? You have a biracial child. I get it and I understand you want to date black, but I'm going to tell you, high value black men are probably the most pickiest. They have the most stringent requirements. And it's starting to be even the ones who don't have a lot of money right now, if they don't have any kids, they just don't want to deal with that. So be more broader in who's approaching you and focus on the fact that you want to get married and you want to have more children and you want to be in a marriage where you're safe, you're protected, you're financially stable, and you're not feeling like you're going to have to do it all, because you can get a man who's making 80, 100, 120. He's just not going to look like what you are wanting. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
I do not.
Okay. Ted, do you have anything else to offer?
That's what I was going to say. Older. All right. How do you? What are your thoughts on a man who's over 45?
I've dated and talked to a man that was around that age.
But
He did I'm sorry.
that's that's not what I asked you. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on dating someone that age?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, what are your hobbies and interests? What are you doing to get you out and get you in proximity to more men?
Well, I volunteer a lot, especially with work. work activities. I also have a nonprofit. I'm also learning to play the violin with my daughter, who's learning to play the piano. I do a couple of activities. I cycle and I join activities in events around the city that does cycling. And I'm also a part of a running group, but it's mainly for Black women. So
Okay, but what are you doing to put you in proximity to mostly men? So, like, what do you do
a,
for fun?
a lot of the cooking classes that I attend, it's kind of like mostly singles only, like it's individual, so it's not couples oriented. That has a lot of different variations of men, of course, of other races. A lot of the volunteering events that I do, it does have a lot of men in those environments.
Why? How about wine tasting? Uh,
I've done a couple of wine tastings as well. I do at least one conference every quarter of the year. And of course, in tech, it's heavily dominated with men, so I meet men in those environments as well.
okay.
Okay, so um, how open and receptive are you to men approaching you when you're at the conference?
Very receptive. That's I think that's kind of where the comment came from as far as my luck in other areas, other ethnicities than my own, because a lot of these conferences, of course, there are other cultures, there are other ethnicities. So I do have a lot of luck in meeting men and talking to men of those cultures.
Okay, so what's more important to you, marriage or race? Oh, I think I cut out. What's more important to you, marriage or race? Okay, I think she might have. Uh,
No,
so,
you're on mute. She's on mute.
Sorry,
yeah,
can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, yeah, my headphone cut out and it just automatically went on mute. So I do apologize. But that's the $1 million question for me. I've been struggling with that for quite some time. Previously, it was definitely race and culture, just from my experience with my daughter's dad and his family and my family. But now it's more so marriage.
Okay, and I can understand. I can understand that. I previously dated interracially. I've had that experience where the family was not approving of the relationship based on my race, and I had to walk away from that relationship. So that kind of like scarred me a little bit from ever wanting to go back that way. But when
Yeah.
it comes to wanting to, so here's the thing: you don't dictate your lane. You don't dictate your market value, right? The consumer does, and the market shows you which lane you are. And how do you know your lane? Is the men who are approaching you. So it's okay that Black men aren't seeing you as an option, right? And I understand the culture factor. You don't have to go with the first non-Black man. You need to choose the one who you guys have compatibility there, even with the culture, like the culture, because compatibility is not everything being the same. It's about harmonizing together so that the what could possibly be a difficulty is not a difficulty, right? It's not a problem. So you need to just don't reject the man just because of your past experiences, but get to know him and see if his family, if he is okay, because you guys are in your 20s, and if he's much older, like he should not be letting his family dictate, although family is important, but making sure that you guys align or compatible as far as your race and your culture not being an issue. And when you say culture, are you talking about Black culture? Because then what would that mean? Because
Hmm.
like Black culture is could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And if you are raised middle class and you are living an upper a middle to upper middle class lifestyle, then Black culture is no longer preeminent. It's the culture of your social economic class that's now that's what's at the forefront. So you should be looking at that. Like, do we align culturally as far as our socioeconomic class and not our race? And I think this is why, like, a conversation around race, it's like People at a certain level need to understand race is not going to be the predominant factor. That's not what's going to create compatibility. Culture is. Culture at the socioeconomic class level that you are is going to be the predominant factor as to whether you're compatible. So if you're middle, upper middle class, he's middle, upper middle class, you know, your hobbies, your values as far as family, marriage, how you're going to raise children, wanting more children, all of that should come into play, especially when you're talking about marriage. So,
Some,
Yes.
go ahead. What were you going to say,
oh
Tara?
no, go ahead, Ted.
Well, someone asked a really good question, and I was thinking too, what, like, why not go back to your college? So someone asked, are you an active member of your university's alumni association? That's, I was thinking, just go back to your college.
I am not actually. So I'd actually do probably back.
You cut out, Tara.
Oh, sorry. I said I am not actually because I'm a part of my grad alumni, so I'm not a part of my undergrad. So I'd actually need to go back.
Yeah, yeah, and someone who, yeah, I think just as a man, um, it's a challenge, especially if you're a man doing well, and still, you know, if he's within 10 years of your age, he still has lots more upward mobility in his career and earning potential. So, wanting to take care of another man's child is becoming less and less popular these days. No matter, you know, how different you may be from other women, just men are hearing too many stories. So they're going to shy away from that. But as Letitia said, a guy who's over 45, he may be more mentally stable. He may give you the intellectual compatibility. Uh, and I have a question: when you did date men who were more blue collar and that, you know, earning under 80,000, did you get the sense that they were intellectually compatible with you?
That's I was actually going to say that a minute ago. I did not. Some of them did want marriage, but they were the events and environments that I had to attend. They pretty much didn't want to attend, and it was kind of like a drag for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can see that. Intellectual compatibility is much more important than people believe, and compatibility is not like, you know, we both like to party and we like the same music and movies and we have, it's not the same as having things in common. We lived in the same places. um, Compatibility has more to deal with your core values, right? So what are your values and how you manage money? How do you manage conflict? Your intellectual capacity, I'll say. Uh, how do you manage your mental and physical health? How do you feel towards travel, domestically, internationally? How do you want to raise your children? How do you want to educate and discipline them? These are all more like family values. And as much as people in the US are so adamantly opposed to arranged marriages, the reason arranged marriages work so well is because they're you have families coming together and making sure they are compatible. So it's more your family values, and so you know, intellectual compatibility has it actually does play a big role if you're going to be with this person on a day-to-day basis. Engaging them in conversation and the kinds of activities you want to pursue could be a problem. So a guy over 45 may be a better match, especially if he's had children. He'll have the patience. Um, he'll have a different perspective, and there, even if he's blue collar, he may have a much higher. He may be more open to exploring things with you, especially understanding that you're younger and he doesn't want you to feel like he's not part of your life. So he may be more willing to explore things and be able to have the intellectual capacity to discuss different events and experiences with you.
So how does that make all of hearing all of this make you feel, Tara?
Um, like what I've been thinking all along was true. Was true. I have had experience with older guys, and it is definitely like that. I was just hoping for something a little bit younger, but I think if I'm being honest, yeah, if I'm being honest, yeah.
What did those guys take care of their bodies? Were they physically fit, or at least, not big guts? Or I mean, did they take care of themselves physically?
For the most part, yeah, yeah. Because fitness is something that I do religiously, so for the most part, we did connect on that as well.
Um, you go to a gym.
Yes,
Which gym?
LA Fitness.
Mm. Um, what's oh damn? What's a more upscale gym in your area?
I think it's Lifetime Fitness. Lifetime.
That's a very good gym. It's about 125 bucks a month. Can you afford that?
Yes.
So tomorrow morning, why don't you go check it out and make a switch? I'm serious when I say that. I'm not being, flippant about that. Like,
Right, you're not being facetious. I because I understand what you're saying too. Like when you said, "Oh, he can make 60,000," I'm like, you're making over six figures. You're going to have to carry the load. You're going to have to be the breadwinner. And I already know that most women are uncomfortable with that, right? So you're trying to create longevity in a relationship, not just get married, but you're trying to stay married as well. And you're like, well, if you make 16, he has to be ambitious and this and that. But sometimes, the average income is what, $50,000 for 50,000 a year. So a lot of men just don't have that ambitious ambition to climb to the top. And you can't force him to do it. You can't make him want to do it. And so I'm in agreement with Ted. You're going to have to be more strategic about how you go about dating. Um, than women your age, other women your age. Be open to older men, whether they have kids or not, as long as they want marriage. If they don't want marriage, you bypass them. Don't even let them get past go. Not taking you out, getting to know you, any of that. Don't even, no. They have to want once you're starting to get to know them and they don't want marriage, you say, "Oh, it was nice getting to know you, but this is not going to work for me. I don't think we're not compatible." Right? You
Hmm.
only give the men who want marriage a chance, a shot. So once if he's older, I mean, you're going to meet some younger men because you're an attractive young woman. So you're going to meet some younger men, but you need to, whether they're young or older, you need to pick the best one out of the bunch who wants to give you marriage, who can give you financial stability and security. So if he's making 80 to 120, and if you get more than that, that's fine. But 80 to 20 upward mobility, you're going to have to change where you are being at in different places. So I'm in agreement with Ted. Switch where you work out at. Fitness is important to you. Those men are going to see you. They're going to see how serious you're taking it. And you're going to have men who are, them paying that 125,000, that $125 a month. That's already showing you that they have the funds. So, I will start there. I will also start being more open to the gentlemen who are approaching you at the conferences. I think you should be more open when it comes to race. And this, I'm just going to tell you, like, so many young women have come to me over the years. And black men don't get upset when I say this because at this point I know. So many young women have come to me over the years. Miss Letitia, I want to be married. I want to have my babies now, and I want my black man. I want my black king. I want to get married to a black man. And I'm looking at them and I'm assessing them, and I'm like, okay, unfortunately, I can see and understand why it's not going to work in that regard. But you're going to have to be open to non-black men. If it's about marriage, you're gonna have to be open to non-black men. And I tell women, your lane, and I tell men this as well, your lane is your lane. And your lane is your how you know which lane you are in is based on who's approaching you. So if you have nothing but non-black men approaching you, that's basically the market saying that this are the men that you're going to be able to get. These are the men you qualify for. So you get the best one out of the bunch. Now, if you move over to this new gym, you increase where you're spending time at. A lot of the business conferences, but also I would say like a lot of the happy hour spots, corporate happy hours, not regular happy hours, but happy hours where they're gonna where a lot of men from corporate is going to be the hotels, the high-end hotels, not just any hotel, the high-end hotels. A lot of these corporations and companies, they host a lot of happy hours, team building sessions. So if your job has a lot of team building sessions, I would suggest you attend those. You have to start putting yourself out there more. I know you're a mom, but at this point, you have to show that you do want to be a wife and that you are a wife. I also would suggest that you um, get in contact with me so that we can discuss further about how you can become more strategic and how you can up your chances and your factor. Because I can only do so much on YouTube. So I think if you really want success, you would have to more than likely probably get in either my mastermind program, and that can help, and that will help guide you and help you with the mindset transformation, because I think that's a factor as well. I think that's something that needs to be worked on, because how you're used to dating and what you typically want, you have to deal with that, and before you can become successful, because you can get out there and you can do everything that we're saying you're doing, but if you have not transformed your mindset, the men who are approaching you that you're giving a chance to, you're not going to be interested in them, because you're not going to be sexually attracted to them, because you're not vetting um, for compatibility that will then trigger sexual desirability. You're vetting for looks, and you're vetting for the fact that you have this ideal in your head of what he needs to look like. So I would suggest get into the get married mastermind so that we can work on that mindset transformation so that you can become successful. Like you're 28, you don't want to be 35 and 40 and still out here trying to figure out how to get it done.
Well, one of the things that you may encounter with men in other racial groups, and they earn as much, if not more than you, they are good. Most of them will want you to be a stay-at-home mom. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that. I actually, if I could do it over, I would do it.
Okay.
Okay, see, I just think there's some mindset transformation because it's like you're scared to say what you desire and what you need.
Mhm.
Because that question was asked before and you couldn't answer it. So when it was asked, you were like in a different way, yes. So in order to be with a solid, good man, a masculine man, you have to learn how to engage him in conversation. Being kind of closed off, withholding, not being able to articulate your needs is going to be an issue, and that's going to then open you up potentially to men who don't mean you any good, men who are going to lie to you, and men who are going to play a game with you. So that's something you also need to work on. So I think you need a more in-depth strategy. So reach out to me and see how to get connected to the Get Married Mastermind if you're serious about your journey to marriage.
Thank you. And I
You're
will definitely reach out.
Okay, I'm going to tuck you back into the audience. Thank you for joining us, Tara. I truly appreciate that. Welcome, Jay.
Hi, can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
I can hear you.
All right. So I just made a move to a new city, and I have a couple of connections here. It's a little tenuous, but I'm trying to figure out how to reestablish myself in a new place, get into the market in this area, and then meet women that are up my alley. Do you have any advice, any feedback, or suggestions? I know I said the same thing 3 times, but
I'll let Ted start it off. Go ahead, Ted.
So I went to college in D.C. I stayed there 14 years. I'm originally from New Jersey. I left the country and I came back to New Jersey. I guess almost 20 years after I left for college, which means I didn't really have a network. I was like you, even though my family was here, I had never worked here. So one of the things that I found was the amount of networking, professional networking events were really good for meeting people. I even went to a few women owned, they were supposed to be for women networking events. I crashed a couple of them. And one woman did ask me, "Are you here to pick up women?" So, uh, but quality networking events, especially if it's something you have to pay for, if it's educational, even better. So I'm not just talking about places where you just sip wine and talk. Something that has more of an educational component to it, and you may find some compatibility. You all maybe have some interest in certain areas. So that was I met a lot of people, not just for business. I met socially also, and it seemed as though people were, and this is in New York City, that people were open to both. I mean, they understood their priority. They were there for business, but I made a lot of great social contacts through that.
Jay, how old are you?
41.
Okay, do you have children?
No.
Do you want children?
Yes.
Do you want to get married?
Yes.
Okay.
To the right woman? Absolutely.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
I'm in IT. I'm a database developer.
Okay, and approximately how much do you make per year?
Over 200.
Okay. How tall are you?
5'10",
And how much do you weigh?
200.
Okay. So what do you like to do for fun? What are your typical hobbies and interests?
Lately, it's been work. But outside of that, it's been cycling, uh, weightlifting, so body maintenance, reading. I like to go to the library. I do like to go to their book sales and volunteering. I do we call it Catholic Big Brother. Um, and then sometimes at the soup kitchen, but the virus that happened the past few years, that shut all of that down. Um, and then from time to time, I do go walking around. I'm in a new neighborhood, new city, so I'm trying to get adjusted and meet new people who own the local businesses. My new neighbors, all that stuff.
Okay, and the type of woman that you'd be interested in marrying, could you describe her?
Let's say over 25, ideally 25 to 34, maybe 30. She would be loyal, kind, patient, charming, and attractive to me.
Okay, what does that mean attractive to you?
I don't like overweight women. She has to have a good fitness level. I mean, she doesn't have to be an Ironman or triathlete or anything like that, but have something. If she does yoga, that's fine. If she does bar, that's fine. If she's a cyclist, that's great. She can ride with me. Um, something along those levels. And then let's say she has a good routine for how she wants to take care of herself. Steams, clay masks, putting on exfoliants, all those different things. Makeup level, I don't like them to be super caked makeup, but light foundation, little rouge, something along those lines, as close to appearing natural as possible.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as her face, you can't use 7.
5, 6.
Okay. When was the last time you've been in a relationship?
2019.
Okay. Have you ever been married?
No.
And how long were you in that relationship?
2 years.
And what happened to cause it to end?
We made good sense on paper, but in actuality, we were not compatible. She was very nitpicky. She was very, uh, she was a therapist and was very good at playing down what I would bring up as problems that I had, and then she would reassign them to me, and I could point them out, and it became very insufferable.
Okay. And why did you stick it out 2 years?
She had everything else. She was kind. She was patient. She was attractive. She was my fitness compatible. We'd go on runs. I mean, beat her. I beat her every time, but she was, very active. Um, but that just became it was a bludgeon. It just killed the relationship.
That's right. Okay, so what would you say would be the most important quality that you desire in a woman, in a future wife?
Kindness.
She was kind. Your ex was
No,
kind.
gaslighting is not kind. Telling me the truth is not what I see is not kind.
Okay, I'm confused because I thought you said she's kind. She was kind.
She had kind mannerisms. So
Okay,
she
so
was
she was a nice
polite.
person then. So she was a
Yeah, she
nice
was.
person. Okay.
Yeah, she was
Because
polite. She knew manners. She knew her rules of order, all that type of stuff. But she was not kind in the way that she could accept the truth or accept me telling her that I did not appreciate how she was treating me.
okay. So what area are you currently in?
Southern Virginia.
Southern Virginia. Okay. What level of education did you achieve?
Masters.
Master's. Okay. Are you looking for a woman who is educated or does that not matter for you?
I mean, a bachelor's would be, yeah, bachelor's.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you grew up, two-parent household, what your parents do for a living.
Um, Parents divorced relatively early. Mother remarried, father remarried, lived with mother, then with father, then went to boarding school, then college, grad school, then working world. Spent most of my time, let's say 0 to 7, with my mother. Spent 7 to 14 with my father, and then 14 onward boarding school, and then college, masters. That was all outside of both their purview.
Where were your parents originally from, and in which country did you attend boarding school?
Mother's from the Caribbean. Father is from Virginia as well, and boarding school in the U.S.
Okay. So you grew up upper middle class?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and you're in Southern Virginia and you're looking for advice on what exactly?
Well, Mr. Santos did give me some good places to go to look forward, and I have joined some groups to figure out some local meetups that I could meet people, and that pay barrier does make sense. One, how to meet people. Two, how to meet a woman who meets those requirements, and then three, how to get that woman into what I see for my long-term plans.
Okay. Do you want her to be a stay-at-home wife or no?
For the children's first few years, yes.
Okay. So
She can
you're
work
looking.
part-time, but I'd prefer her to be primary, tender of the children.
What? How many? First few years. What is that? Like, give me a real number.
Ideally 0 to 7.
Okay. And let's see. Do you have a preference as far as race?
1A black, and then 1B, C, whatever is all other.
Okay. So what would you say has been your biggest difficulty when it comes to dating? Is it just you move to a new environment and you're trying to figure out how to go about in this new environment, or have you actually, faced some struggles and difficulties to getting into a marriage with a woman that would be compatible with you for a long term?
The virus shut down a lot of time, so you just lose that muscle. I did have someone I was seeing casually before that, and during and through that. We're Let's say that thing is up in the air. Nice lady, but she's not interested in marriage. Now in a new city, I pretty much shut that door, and I'm looking for a new beginning, trying to figure out who that should be. How did I find that person in this area?
Well, it's going to take you getting out, and it's going to
Yeah,
take you being,
please
approach,
continue.
like, how do you approach women? Do you, you see a woman that you're attracted to, do you struggle in approaching her?
No, I'll strike up a conversation if it seems appropriate. Uh, the other day I was at a local event, it was a concert for, I can't remember. It was like a Bay Day, River Day, something like that. You know, something the end of summer. Labor Day type of thing. And talked to a lady for a couple minutes. Got her phone number. Called her. We're supposed to meet up in a couple of days, but there's not a lot of opportunities because IT, you work from home a lot. So I do have to find like more events, more co-working spaces, that type of thing.
Okay, so like I told the last guest, but in reverse, you're gonna have to get out and where the women are, which is easy, right? Because women are going to be everywhere. Um, what and you're it's like you don't really have any interests and hobbies that are gonna put you in proximity to the women at the social level that you want to be in. Like, so I take it you don't have any female friends in your social circle, right? Females in your social circle.
I mean that would be ideal, but new city, I don't have as many of those women around. The old city, I definitely did, and
So really,
yeah,
it's really about you networking with women and vetting the ones that you're networking with, the ones that you're socializing with, to see which one of those are interested in a long-term relationship and interested in marriage. So you're from Virginia, you're just not from this area in Virginia.
correct.
Okay. Um,
I actually have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, is there a country club that you're like, country club? Women love to play golf, so like, well, they may not be playing, but they like to be on the golf course, um, looking at the men and trying to attract the husband, or the wives are there and they love to match make for young eligible bachelors. So country club, golf course. Um, Virginia has some nice uh, places, cultural places, museums. Women love being at museums. Galas, you're definitely going to find some single women there. So it's going to be a matter of you being proactive. But go ahead, Ted. What were you going to say?
I'm not. I'd like to understand why you didn't marry 15 years ago.
Didn't meet a woman who I thought I would want to have children with.
You were in college. I mean, so Letitia asked on a scale of 1 to 10, and you said 5 or 6. That's going to be the overwhelming majority of women. So while you were in college, you would have seen a huge amount of women who fit in that category 15 years ago. Uh, and you're saying out of all the women in college, and where'd you go to school?
Uh, UVA.
University.
That's an undergrad.
Yeah, yeah. They have a fairly big population, don't they?
Yeah, yeah,
I just, like, probably more like 70% white, correct? Something like that.
yeah.
Okay. um, I went to Howard, so I but I went to a high school that was probably 98% white. Uh, my assumption is in a school like UVA, the black students they probably had a Black Student Association, and there's probably more camaraderie in a school like that. But, so I can't understand why it would have been difficult to meet someone back then.
I did not appeal to those women.
Or you didn't appeal to them, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I
Got
just
it.
didn't appeal to them.
Okay, but there's always one, right?
Yeah,
All it takes is just one. You didn't appeal to anybody?
To the one I did,
Mm-hmm.
she was not that interested. It seemed like I was, how do I describe it? Like, she seemed interested, but not overly interested. It was like Weekend at Bernie's. Like she wanted me to lead everything all the time, and wouldn't give me feedback at any point. So I didn't know if she was actually interested in me more than that. Nice lady, but yeah, it was. Yeah,
So help me understand, when you say she wanted you to lead everything, what exactly are you saying?
she was not very communicative most of the time.
Okay.
I knew she liked me, but I did not get any feedback from her about anything
I think
except that she just wanted to spend time with me, and it
yeah,
was
that's
very confusing.
very vague though. She wants to spend time with you, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Did you ask her if she liked you?
yes, yes.
What was her answer?
She did.
Okay, so she said yes. She said yes, I like you. What were you needing more from her? Specifically, what did you need from her to let her know that the interest was really there?
To give me feedback on a regular basis, to actually engage me. How do I describe it? Like,
What do you mean by feedback? I mean, are you looking for like a quarterly review like you get at work?
not even that, but it was when they say Weekend at Bernie's, it was she liked spending time with me, but when she was with me, she would not really be communicative. She would not talk, right? And so I would take her out, we would spend time together, we would go walking around to, quad. We'd have a good time, but she didn't let me know anything, as though she was just a blank slate and I was supposed to feed into her all the time. And if I don't know if anything is going well, I don't know really how to move until it just fizzled out over a summer.
Okay. Has that ever happened subsequent in any subsequent relationships?
No.
Okay, so it's just once. Um, so she was looking for you to sort of understand where she was without her having to say anything.
That's the best way I can take it.
Okay, and I'm just curious. I'm probably you do the same. You look for patterns. Um, was there any common ground with the woman who was the psychotherapist? Did that ever happen at all? Was she looking for you to lead in that situation, in that relationship?
Uh, I would say no. I think she wanted me to meet her standard, and I did to a degree, but not exactly. She seemed to want me to be more higher status, basically.
Okay,
Than
but did she give you the feedback you needed? Wait, and before you answer, you said you think she wanted you to meet a higher standard, but it sounds like you're not sure. So does that mean she didn't give you the proper feedback to let you know what was needed on her end?
no, she wanted she had a doctorate, and she wanted me to be at least a Juris Doctorate, MD, PhD along those levels. I don't have that. Masters is fine. Certifications, I'm fine with. But I was not planning on. She would have loved if I had taken my technical background and gotten like a patent attorney, gotten a specialization, gone and get into JD, become a patent attorney, and then she would have felt like I would have been a better fit.
So it sounded like she was leading from the bottom.
She was trying to, yeah.
Okay. So how long did the relationship with the girl in college, how long did that last for you?
So 6 to 9 months, somewhere in that range. Like we met early on, and it lasted a while.
And why were you so quick to let that one go?
Because if I don't get feedback on reciprocation and a summer, I just decided to let it go.
Okay. So so it seems like the first one was waiting for you to tell her what you wanted.
Yeah.
And the
It's kind of hard
second
to do that when I was that young, but I know what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second one was focused on just telling you what she wanted. And you, even though you didn't like it, you could respond better to it.
But the second one was looking for the same thing. Because I don't know what would have happened if you said, no, I'm not doing that. My professional trajectory is great. I love where I am and where I'm going. And I need you to see where I am, and what you're asking for, I'm not going to do. And you need to tell me if you can be with me with what I stand for, because I'm on a great track.
But that's the
Well,
thing.
I did tell her that, and that's partially why we wound up ultimately breaking up.
All right, well, that's fine then.
But that's the thing. He won't lead in those conversations. He desires for the woman to lead in those conversations. And
What,
when you get with a woman who is willing to lead in those conversations, she's going to unequivocally tell you what she wants and how she likes it, and she's going to stand firm on that. And the likelihood of her willing to negotiate is not very high. So I'm looking at this from a leadership standpoint in how he engages with women. Is he capable of or willing to lead a woman who is what he is saying? Because it sounds like he wants a feminine, soft woman, right? And if you want a feminine, soft woman who is healthy, who is secure, she's going to take a more passive waiting approach, wanting you to tell her what you want, and then she will agree or not agree. Like that's how those conversations
Yeah.
usually happen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think part of the thing is, as a young man, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to be. I knew the general direction I was going, and so being more instructive and more demanding of like what I wanted to fulfill my needs, I wasn't as good as describing that. And then the other woman, I was not as good at laying down the boundaries early on, and I let that carry on for much longer than I wanted to. And when I finally started laying down those boundaries, it became clear that she was not going to accept them. And then we wound up. I left that relationship, and it was probably one of the better things that happened to me.
but
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Ted.
you see the common ground between the two? There's a pattern.
Yeah, me
Right. But do you see what the pattern is about?
not being incisive, not being determined, and to describing what I want, and then setting those expectations early on.
Right. Right. So you could find a great woman tomorrow, but if you could end up in the same situation where the woman is looking for you to lead, and so she takes over. And then when you decide to assert yourself, she's like, I didn't sign up for this. This is not who you showed me. This is not what, I'm with you because I can lead from the bottom. And now you won't let me do it? No, I'm going to kick and scream, and I'm leaving. Or the woman who lets it fizzle out. So it doesn't mean you have to be like some, dictator kind of guy, but it may not hurt if you have it in you.
I have it in me.
Okay.
Now I'm looking for the opportunity to.
Right.
You have to know how to effectively communicate that if you have it. Like,
Right.
it's not being a hammer and treating everything like a nail. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to learn to lead in the approach and follow through with that in all regards. You have to have the confidence you have to know what you want and have the confidence to assert what you want and not fear rejection. And the woman has the right to agree or not agree. She has the right to accept what you're offering or what you want, or she has the right to reject it. Once she rejects it, then you know that's over. But I think a lot of men get hung up on the fear of rejection, so they string it out over a long period of time, thinking that hopefully who I am, my personality, and what I offer to her would be good enough for her not to reject me once I do start to assert what I want. But no, like Ted said, that's not what she signed up for, because that's not what you presented yourself. She felt and very comfortable leading from the bottom. And then now she can't lead because now she's got to follow. She's got to outright follow. And so she's not going to want that. So you're going to have to assert yourself and lead all the way through, from the approach, the getting to know you phase, dating, courting. And then once you get into a committed relationship, then you can renegotiate, have that conversation to renegotiate. But I'm going to tell you what a feminine woman, she's going to be looking for you to tell her what you want. And you have to be clear about it. And then she will either acquiesce or say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that. And then you can have a conversation on that. You can, negotiate in that regard. But so I don't want you to go in saying, well, this is what I want and that's it, and there's no room for negotiation, and that's that, you have to give it to me. No, you go in, you tell her what you want, and then she can say, nope, I don't want that outright. I don't see me doing that whatsoever. Then you know what you're dealing with. But if she says, okay, I can see what you're saying, but I'm kind of like, I don't feel comfortable, or what does that look like? She starts to ask questions. Now you know she's open for negotiation. But I do think for you, I don't think you struggle in meeting women. I think with you struggle in your role. And you have to pick a role. You're either going to be the masculine or you're going to be the feminine. And if you're going to be the masculine, you have to be authentic in that. You can't say, well, I'm the masculine because I'm a man. That's what society dictates of me. That's what I'm supposed to do. But then you're acting like the feminine in the role. So pick a role and function in that, operate in that, and see that all the way through. Stand on it.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Outside of work, when it comes to you, if you say I'm going to do X, or I'm no longer going to do Y, uh, on a percentage scale, what are the chances of you doing it? That may not be a good way to ask it, but it's the first way. Do you understand what I'm asking you?
How resolute am I with my decision?
No. Well, maybe. I'm trying to get an understanding as you carrying things out. So if you say I'm going to do it, or you say I'm not going to do it, is it 50% of the time you do what you say you're going to do, or you don't, or you say I'm not going to do it and you don't? Like,
Yeah. Like,
75, or is it
I'd
10,
say I'd like to say I'm 100%, but really it's like 80%.
about
I
80%?
tried, last night I was determined to go out, meet new people. I did go to a cigar bar and I met some new folks, but I was worn out because I was in class all weekend. So I ducked out, stubbed out my cigar, closed out my bill, and went home to go to bed. I was burnt out. But yeah, I try to do what I do and do what I promise, especially myself. But sometimes, you get tired. I was in class all day and then was up until.
No, I got you. And so when you're in a relationship, is that number still about 75, 80%?
In a relationship, I try to lean harder because into closer to 100%, just because I know another person is relying on me. And so I need to be there.
Right. So if you're meeting at 7 o'clock, you're there at 7. You're not there at 7:01. You're there at 6:55.
Yeah. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, don't bother showing up.
Okay, but how much do you allow for a woman to depend on you, to lean on you? Like, how much of that are you willing to take on?
Well, wait, before he answers that, so that's one part of it. So now, when you're in a relationship with a woman, um, is she at the same number as you, 70 or 80, 75 to 80% of the time, she does what she says she's going to do. If you're meeting at 7, it's not 7:01, she's there at 6:55. If she says she's no longer going to do something, like 75, 80% of the time, she keeps her word. How does that work also, is what I want to understand.
I'll try to answer both questions. Outside of the 2 relationships I mentioned before, most of the time I'd say the overwhelming majority of the time, they try to meet that standard. They try to get there when they need to, or I will get there in order to take them where we need to be, and we'll be on time or early, you know? And then the women that I've picked outside of those 2 relationships have tended to be very responsive to being where I need them to be and following instruction for certain things I request.
Okay, so when it comes to following instructions and they say they will do it, 75 to 80% of the time they will carry it through, and you accept that number of 75 to 80%.
Yeah. And I'll ask them to try harder, but typically I think they're better at following those instructions when I lay them out.
Okay, interesting. And what your last relationship with the psychotherapist, it seemed like she wasn't really taking your instructions when you said, this is what doesn't work and this is what I do need. She was giving you 0% cooperation for that.
Like 50%.
So
And
she was an anomaly for you?
Yeah. She pursued me, and she was a good-looking lady, and so I went along with it to see what played out, and it was pleasant at first, and then became more demanding in a way that didn't work for me, and I wound up just getting sick of it after a certain amount of time.
okay, so you understand why I'm asking this question?
Yeah.
Why?
What am I willing to tolerate? And then why am I willing to tolerate that?
Right. So if you accept it 50%, she's running the show.
Yep.
And she doesn't have to have any integrity, and she knows you're okay with that. And a lot of guys do get kind of hit with that with attractive women because this fear of her taking away affection, sex and affection uh, can manipulate men as opposed to, and then the woman ends up falling for the guy who says, I demand 100%. And if you give me 75, it's unacceptable.
Yeah. It wasn't the sex or affection. I think I was
Okay. The thing is,
go ahead. Go ahead.
you want a feminine woman, but you got lured in by a masculine one.
Yes.
You want to be the masculine, but you got lured in. And that's sometimes that happens because men are so the ones who are out here doing all the pursuing, the approaching, that sometimes when a woman does that for you, you kind of, it's like, this is new. Let me see what this is about. I kind of like this, that it's not all on me. That's why I ask, how much are you okay with a woman depending on you fully to fully lead during the getting to know you in the courting stages, right? Because if you fall trap to a masculine woman, that lets me know that you're tired of having to take on the full responsibility. Like, let's take on the responsibility of a relationship. At least in the very beginning, you'll like to relinquish that a little bit to a woman. But what you get when a woman is willing to do that is she's going to lead. She
Yeah.
started that. She started by
That
leading.
was that was that was
Yeah.
pretty much the exception to how that situation. Normally, I've had situations where women will roughly drop their handkerchief. They'll just make themselves known, and then I'll be able to pursue from there.
Right.
And that's where I really prefer.
But that
But she was
was
attractive.
that your longest relationship?
No,
Okay, what was your longest relationship?
5 years.
And how old were you when you had that relationship? You started that relationship and the relationship ended.
22 to 27.
And
Well,
why?
22 to we took a year off. She went abroad for work. I went abroad for work, and it we tried to start it, and then it was just a hunk of junk at the second half of it.
Okay, so why did it end? The beginning, the first time. Why did it end?
I honestly don't remember. Like I could make up an answer, but I just don't remember.
Do you remember who ended it?
She did.
Okay. Okay, because earlier Ted asked you why weren't you married? Why didn't you get married in college?
Yeah.
And you said no, they didn't want you, and you had a whole 5-year relationship here.
Yeah, but that was after college. So I met
Yeah,
her after college about a
I
half
said
hour ago. Go ahead.
15. I said 15 years ago.
Oh,
Why weren't you married 15 years ago? And she fits right into that number, that 15-year ago.
well,
15
I
years
was
ago, you were 26, right?
correct. Yes.
And so you dated her until you were 27.
Yes.
So I asked you a very direct question.
I was assuming that it was following up on the college question and that it was
I said
asking in college.
15. I said, I didn't say anything
I'm
about
sorry I didn't answer clearly.
15 years ago.
Yeah, my apologies. I thought I would answer for the college question. I did not realize you were asking that time frame as well.
Yep, that was the most important because I
My
couldn't
apologies.
Okay,
understand.
that was my fault because I did say college, so that was my
Well,
fault.
see, I couldn't understand why a guy who's ambitious and doing well in his career and saying he really wants to marry, it just didn't mathematically add up why you were not already married. That's why I asked that.
Yeah.
Okay, so she ended it and you're not sure why.
Yeah. Still not.
Still not.
No, I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But the second time, I know the second time it ended because I was not willing to marry, and I still don't know why that is. I think that's more the fear of having parents who got divorced and then remarried. That would be my determination for myself.
That's what I was waiting for you to tell me because it didn't make sense. You were not married 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this need for the woman to reassure you that she wants you, that speaks to some type of insecure attachment style, fearfulness, anxiety, the fear of where the need for the woman to reassure you and constantly let you know where things are going, where you stand with her. The psychotherapist was able to do that because she's very vocal, she's very assertive. But I'm afraid that you're going to struggle. You struggle with more feminine women because feminine women aren't um aren't very assertive in that way. They'll tell you when they're comfortable with something, uncomfortable with something. But when something is going good, it's more of like, yeah, it's good. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm with you, right? We're hanging out. We're having a good time. Um, and if there's not any problems, then you're going to be wondering, well, you're not doing anything, you're not responding, you're not acting crazy, you're not acting, overly emotional. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know how you feel about me because you're not giving me the normal responses that I would expect from a woman to let a man know that she's into him. And I don't think that first relationship you mentioned, I don't think that's the only relationship that you've experienced that in.
The longest one, I had a little bit of the responsiveness, but not enough to really say it was better than the first one. That's what I'll say. But it wasn't. I wasn't certain. That I would put on me. I wasn't certain. But you can
Okay.
never be certain.
Now
So,
I'm curious as to what your attachment style is. Have you ever taken an attachment style assessment?
if I have, I don't remember what my style is. I mean, I have to look for my email records, but
But you are familiar with the attachment style assessment.
yeah, yes.
Okay. Yes, I would be interested. I do. I'm picking up an insecure attachment style in there, and that because I don't think you have trouble meeting women. You're successful. You're a successful guy. You seem attractive. 5'9". You're in a decent weight range. You're very articulate, right? You have some good hobbies, some good interests. So I don't think meeting women is a problem. I think after the initial introduction, and because you're able to get into a relationship, But how do you get from being in a relationship to getting to the point where you're now wanting marriage or she's wanting marriage? And a feminine woman is not going to be comfortable with a man who is not sure of his role, a man who doesn't want to assume the masculine role, or a man who tries to play both roles at the same time. Also, a feminine woman is not going to be responsive to an insecure attachment style, especially that of an anxious or fearful one. Dismissive avoidance she could possibly deal with, but an anxious or fearful avoidant attachment style is not something that she's going to be receptive to.
Mm.
When you're younger, you're more inclined to stay in the relationships longer, especially you're older millennials, so especially back during those times. But now it's getting more difficult, whereas younger women are struggling to pair bond. So they're not. So if you're dating women in their 20s, in their early 30s, they're struggling to pair bond for a myriad of reasons. And another reason is that the masculine aspect is just not there for them. I'm not saying that you're not masculine. I'm just saying that you're choosing, it seems like you choose to be more, take on the more feminine role in the beginning. And then you want to, once you get comfortable and she gets comfortable with you, then you want to switch over to the masculine. Feminine women will be turned off by that. Masculine women will be turned on. And then once you try to switch, they will not be receptive to that. So again, you have to figure out which role you want to play. I mean, not play, which role you want to operate in. And I also suggest that you focus on your attachment style. Figure out if you're actually able to attach to women. Because if you're not able to attach to them, then they're not going to feel secure in that relationship and they're going to want to end it. Does that make sense for
Okay.
you?
Yeah, it does.
So I think focusing, trying to, I think once you work on those issues, you just got where you're at. You know how to socialize. So meeting women is not going to be a problem for you. It's a matter of you being able to attract them to get to different stages. And then even if you are able to get with one, to be able to keep the relationship in order to get to marriage. So you also have some mindset transformation to do. So this is not a matter of just, I need to meet women, I need to meet a good woman. There is a mindset, because like Ted said, you should have been married. You're a highly successful man, come from a good background, upper class, upper middle class, upper class background. You should have been married, and you should have been married to women in your social circle, within your, also within your socioeconomic class. But that didn't pan out for you. So now you have to figure out what's going on with you to where you can be able to be in a relationship. Ted, did you want to add anything else before we let Alexander go?
Yeah, there's a divorce has had a profound impact on society in general. The more divorce we have, the more impact, the more it impacts society. Because children actually grow up oftentimes concerned about getting married and getting a divorce, and knowing how that's not a pretty situation. So um, it's something to really unlearn, as Letitia was just talking about transformation. So it, we're just having a few-minute conversation here, but it could have you tiptoe around things and not be as assertive as you need to be. And yes, being with a feminine woman she may take more of a passive. But if you do meet another assertive woman who fits what you like, if you attempt to be assertive in a way that you are really not, she's going to see through that and she's going to test you. She's going to poke at it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she'll seem like she's nitpicking with you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say women are very pragmatic about that type of stuff. I'm not a dummy about that. I do try to maintain this authenticity,
Right,
but
right.
I realized that yeah, I fumbled the ball a couple of times. I've had good relationships. I've had none that have made it the test of time. Part of that is my fault, but I need to realize, how do I make myself really step into that role 100% of the time, especially up front. So I attract the right type of person and get that right type of person with me.
Well, the when I asked you why you were not married 15 years ago, if you were like brutally honest, you would have said because I didn't want to. It didn't matter who you were with. You just were not going to let it happen. You get that, right?
I do.
Yeah, you're not married because you honestly didn't want to be married. It was a risk.
Yeah.
Do you like your career?
Yeah.
So the worst thing is to be distracted. Something you like, you enjoy, and then to get a divorce and be distracted. It's hell. Divorce has a huge impact on people, and you're going to have to navigate that. Like you've developed yourself to be who you are, and divorce is intertwined in who you are, and it makes decisions for you. How old were you again when your parents divorced?
Probably 4 or 5, something like
Wow,
that.
that's a huge um, that's a huge impact on the child. I just curious. At any point, did you ever wonder if you could have made things different between your parents, or it was kind of your fault they had a divorce? Like you had something to do with it?
No, but I think they tell me that I used to ask if they get back together until I was like 10, and I do remember that,
Okay.
especially the 10 part. But
Yeah, yeah,
they never got back together, so no.
yeah. Most children aren't able to do that,
So
even.
let me ask you a question. Did you feel like that your parents were capable of meeting your needs? That they,
Uh,
yeah.
for a time, yes, and then no, and then they said that's why they sent me to boarding school.
Okay. Did you feel anxious about not getting your needs met, or did you feel like you just couldn't depend on them, so you would become more self-reliant?
No, I couldn't depend on them at a certain point, and that's when boarding school became the thing. And it was a good decision. It was a good decision on their part to give me that space and the kind of that sense of like structure, authority. And it was not something I liked at first, but it was great on the back end when looking back at it, especially.
So the reason why I asked is because attachment theory is based on our childhood and what's happening in our childhood. And there are four attachment styles. There's secure, insecure. There's insecure and secure. And in the insecure group, you have anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, and you have the disorganized avoidant, which is a mixture of the preoccupied and the dismissive avoidant. So typically with children is you're going to attach to a caregiver, or you should be able to attach to a caregiver, and that usually comes in the form of the parents, right? If you felt as if your parents were not meeting your needs, you're going to then go into either being anxious, and what anxious children do is they act out. They become very needy. It's to them, it's like, if I can't get my needs met through positive reinforcement, then I need to know if you're going to be there, if you can be there for me. So they start to act out, they get in trouble, they become very, very needy. A child who has dismissed dismissive avoidant, they see it as, listen, my parents are usually, you have very neglectful parents. They're usually on drugs. They're usually abusive. They're very poor. They can't meet your financial needs. They're detached, right? They're detached. So what happens is that child grows up starting to become self-reliant. So like even as babies, you start to learn how to pacify and take care of yourself. So a secure child understands that, okay, I'm crying, mommy, daddy, somebody will be here to take care of my need.
Mm.
So even though they're crying to get that need met, the anxiousness doesn't develop, the fearfulness doesn't develop later on. They just understand, I need to give this response because it's a typical biological response. And mommy and daddy will be here. A child who is anxious will cry, 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 even after mommy and daddy is there. They will still cry. They can't be pacified. They can't be calmed down because the anxiety and the fear has set in. A child who is dismissive doesn't cry. Like they cried at one point, no one showed up in time or whatever, so they just don't cry. They pacify themselves. They'll sit and wait until someone comes, right? And they've noted, and the studies show that they've noticed this in infants. Infants will start to do this. So as they start getting older, they start testing their parents in different ways. Toddlers become very needy, become very anxious, tantrums, uh, acting out, and we're like, well, why are these kids being so bad and just won't listen and just being so anxious? It's because they're trying to see if their parent will pacify them, will take care of them. A dismissive avoidant child will play by themselves, will focus on playing by themselves, won't ask for anything, won't ask for help, won't do it, won't really be comfortable playing with other friends their age, kids their age. They start to become very self-reliant, take care of themselves. Um, a secure child can go either way. It's like, okay, I know mommy and daddy is here, but they're busy. I'm comfortable playing by myself, but mommy and daddy is here. So if I want to go see mommy and daddy and see where mommy and daddy is, I can, and they'll be there. An anxious child is going to be anxious about that or fearful about that. And as they start to get older, they start to show, it starts to come out in different ways. As you get older in adolescence, adulthood, your romantic relationships, it starts to present itself in similar ways but different because we're adults. An anxious avoidant, an anxious preoccupied person is hyper vigilant about what this person, how this person feels about them. They need constant reassurance. They need to, there are signals and cues. And if they're not getting those signals and cues, they'll start to engage in self sabotage behavior. They'll start arguments. They'll start to distance themselves. They'll pull away. But the reason why they're pulling away is because they want the person to pull closer. They want the person to chase them because the person chasing them lets them know that you want me. They'll start arguments out of nowhere. Why? Because if the person responds to those arguments, then it's signaling, I want you. Anxious, preoccupied person cannot be with a nonchalant person or a person who has a more secure attachment style, who is not going to engage in that behavior pattern. A dismissive avoidant is going to be a person who is not looking for a relationship. They might want one, but they're not really looking for it because they're not trying to get close to anybody. They're not trying to get close to anybody. They don't want anybody to rely on them, because relying on them, it's like I have to rely on myself. I don't have it in me for you to rely on me. That's putting too much pressure, too much responsibility on me. So they then start to sabotage with that person and push that person away. When it feels like it's becoming too much, they're getting too close because that person is going to become needy, and dismissive avoidance do not like dealing with needy people. Anxious preoccupies, they love dealing with needy people. Dismissive avoidance, they don't like needy people. Disorganized avoidant is a mixture of the two. Now they want relationships, but they don't want to do the work that it takes to get close to someone because they're too afraid of the relationship not working out. So then they will engage in self-sabotage of this push and pull method. So if you constantly find yourself in and out of a relationship with someone, because they'll get close to someone, and then once that relationship starts to form and it starts to get solid, it's too much for them. They can't handle getting close, so then they'll pull back. But then once they pull back, they're comfortable now. They're calm now. They're starting to reevaluate. Oh, I want that person back. I really miss this person. I like this person. So then they'll reach out again, pull the person back in. Once the person starts getting comfortable and asserting what they need from the relationship, put the brakes on, push them away again. So that's why you see a lot of those push and pulls. So I'm wondering, which attachment style are you? Because I'm not thinking, it doesn't sound like you're secure. And I know a lot of people are like, well, what's the attachment style? That doesn't make any sense. But your attachment style, how you attached in childhood, says a lot of how you'll be able to engage, be in a relationship. Can you attach? Can you be in a relationship with someone else? Can you feel comfortable and secure with that? And those who suffer from insecure attachment styles, even though they have everything going for themselves and they're successful, they can't bring themselves to form a lasting relationship because of what happened in their childhood. Does that make sense to you?
It does, yeah. From what you described, I'd say somewhere in the anxious and dismissive attachment would be more apt than me.
Okay,
But
so disorganized, avoidant. Okay.
yeah, and I have seen a therapist before and had a lot of more professional things worked out, and I was really able to move forward with that. Some personal things as well, but maybe I need to see another therapist to work on some of this stuff for the personal more specifically. Um, yeah, that's what we can say.
Alrighty, so I would suggest like focus on self-improvement, looking within. If you want to go back to therapy, focus on because I know a lot of therapists don't talk about attachment theory, but when it comes to relationships, it's very important to have that discussion with your therapist. Attachment theory, the way that they like to try to do it is they like to just talk about your childhood, and they do it in a different way, and you're not getting it. I had one client who reached out to me and was like, I've been in therapy all my life. And then I come to you and you talk about attachment theory, and I go back to and I get it, and I go back to my therapist. It's just like, oh, yeah, that's what I've been working with you on for about the last 5 years. And he was like, well, why didn't you tell me it was attachment theory and explain it to me like she did? And I wouldn't have been in therapy for 5 years trying to figure this out. So they're trying to do a slow burn. And I understand that. But I do think that our traumas from our past, whether we see it as trauma or not, has a way of coming into our present, and it affects the present, and not only affects the present but affects our future. In order for you to successfully be able to lead and head a family, you're going to have to deal with that, because that woman and those children are going to be depending on you, and you can't afford to fold because you're being triggered by your past. So I would suggest focus on that. If you like to reach out to me, you can go to my website at www.twoheartsexclusive.com, and we can go from there. Or you can take your route and go back to therapy, or figure out your plan. I'm just here to assist and to help and give you some idea of where your next steps would be in order to improve your dating life so that you can get to marriage.
Yeah, this is an illuminating conversation. Thank you both.
Hey, I have one question.
Sure.
Based on the conversations that you've just had in the past few minutes, and I know this is putting you on the spot, but if you had to do any of your relationships over in the past, what would you do different now, knowing what you know now?
Be more exact in my demands, meaning like be more upfront, especially earlier on. I would have cut a lot of time out. The one in undergrad, I could have done that a lot easier to get through whether or not we were actually compatible, or whether she just found me attractive enough to be with me. The one that lasted for 5 years, I would have tried to figure out what exactly she wanted from me as far as a marriage, because I think she did want to get married to me, and I was not interested in that just because of me. And I would have tried to get, what do you want from me out of that, and then hopefully it would have been more ready to attack that. And then the last one, the therapist, I would have wanted to get out of that relationship earlier.
Okay. But even with the 5-year relationship, if she explicitly said marriage, uh, you just would have strung that along anyway. It was like nothing that wouldn't have changed anything, would it? Have?
I I'd like to think no, but that's probably right. I wouldn't. I honestly would not have minded a long term, meaningful relationship, but marriage is. It was something that just didn't strike me as something that is concrete.
Okay. All right. So probably would have had the same outcome with the 5-year because most women are looking for marriage, especially if they're with you for a few years.
Yeah,
And for you to be unsure about that, she's eventually going to walk.
yeah,
If that's what she really wants, I mean, unless you were bringing something really extraordinary that she knew she couldn't find anywhere else. Maybe she would have stuck around, but she would have ended up getting frustrated at some point. But yeah. So and so I think maybe that's the thing that may be mixed into who you are and how you show up in the world is that don't want to get married, even though you called here, you joined this conversation saying you want to get married. But I don't know if you've uh, discharged that mindset of not wanting to get married yet.
I can agree.
And that's where the transformation of mindset comes in.
Right. So even if you met the woman who is perfectly compatible, everything you want, you may still, because you're not 100% sure about just getting married, like you may end up in one of those scenarios that you're already in. You're going to watch history repeat itself some way.
Yeah.
You
I
get
have to
what?
work on that instead of, just wind up taking the leap, like I don't know, walking onto an invisible bridge and just hoping that the bridge is there.
You mean and get married?
Yeah, yeah.
But as you said, you need to be clear about your expectations. You need to listen to hers and make sure the two of you are compatible in your core values. I mean, that's really essentially. I mean, that's where relationships make or break. I mean, there are all kinds of case studies of guys going out as entrepreneurs, losing it all, sleeping out of the car, and his wife never left him. I think one of the founders of LinkedIn was in that. He tried some startups and it failed, and he was 40. His wife was pregnant, and they had to move to his mother's house. But his wife just didn't leave because she knew she married the right guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that is not. I don't know. I can't describe it as. That is not the low end. Is not what worries me. It is whether the longevity of the relationship will actually be there.
But
Like, because I've met. I mean, trust me, I met women who are reliable and faithful and believe and encourage, but whether or not, like, they'll go low and they'll go high, but that length, that's the thing that it doesn't. That's the problem
He
that
doesn't
I have
trust the
in my life.
process.
Yeah,
I'm guessing you don't trust the process. Like it's like once something starts not looking right, it's like they look good on paper, they sound great, but the moment it looks like this is a difficulty or a problem, you start to second guess. You're already second guess, but then you're getting into it and you're second guessing again. So um, I agree with Ted that even though you're 41, your past is going to catch up with you. It's always going to be there. Who
yeah,
you are is always going to be there. The fear, the anxiety of it not working out, because that's the disorganized avoidant. It's the fear and anxiety of it not working out. They like to be with someone. They want to be in a relationship, but the fear and anxiety that it's not going to work out. And if she's moving a little funny to you, right? She may be moving a little funny to you. You're like, this is not going to work, right? It's not. So you're going to have to focus on that. So this is not even about you, where to meet women for you. This is about you and
yeah,
what you need to do to ensure that you're transforming that mindset of self-sabotage, not sure if you really want it, because you say you want it, but you're not really sure how badly you want it, if you're willing to do what it takes. Because when it comes to relationships and marriage, that's a lot of responsibility. And that is a lot of work. And then it's like, well, I put in all this effort for what? For it to end? So if you're having those are thoughts that you've had in your 20s and in previous relationships. So you're going to have to get a hold of that mindset, transform that mindset before you can actually consider marriage. And in figuring that out and transforming that mindset, then you will really know if you really want it or not. If you don't want marriage, there's some men who don't want to get married. Then you'll deal with the women who don't want to get married and you'll be fine. If you want to get married and you truly want that in your heart, then you will only deal with the women who align with you. I think you get with women who don't align with you too, because again, self-sabotage. You're not sure if you really want it. So you're willing to try other things. You're willing to deal with things that just doesn't seem right, because it doesn't put that pressure on you to marry them, because you've already determined they're not marriage material for you, good on paper or not. You know what it would take for you to want to marry a woman, and you're gonna get with women who you know are not that, even though they look like it, but they're really not that, and you can be comfortable in that and be in that relationship, because it gives you time to figure out if you really want to get married or not.
Well,
I get what you're saying.
let me say this. I brought up purposely situations where everything fell apart, sleeping out of the car, having to live with your mother. Those couples had a very different mindset. These are highly committed people who are committed to making it work. See, when you're married and things happen, man, whether it's from having children or you work for a company that goes out of business, it gets acquired and they lay people off. Like sometimes in life, you're in deep doo doo, man. And when people are not committed and if they're not compatible, um, how do we resolve this conflict in our life? Uh, Pushing the eject button becomes easier. And I was talking about people who worked through it together when everything fell apart. So there's no second guessing in that. This is a commitment. We're in this thing called life together. We're a team. And so I don't know if you can, Letitia was talking about attachment styles, but can you bring on a teammate into your life and know that we're going to work through it no matter what? That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I completely understand that. I mean, a lot of it is more, it's in me and not in them. That's out of a few exceptions, but yeah.
Good. Good.
All right. Well, Jay Alexander, thank you for joining us. I hope you got everything you needed. You got your
Yeah.
questions answered.
Thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
Okay. You're welcome. I'm
Good
going to
evening.
tuck you back into the audience.
Thanks for being so open.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for watching. Again, like the channel, share it. If you're new to watching, welcome. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you love what's happening on this channel and you would love to see it grow, I need your help. That means I need you to like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you would like to show your appreciation, you can send an in-kind donation to Cash App $ the matchmaker, or you can send a PayPal donation at the matchmaker at twoheartsexclusive.com. It is scrolling on the ticker below. Show me how much you appreciate the show and appreciate the content. And I think we're going to end it on that note. But Ted, do you have any final words as to the topic or anything else before we close? Before I give my last remarks.
Sure. So if you're a woman looking for a high value, affluent guy, don't go into that looking for him to give you all these tingly feelings and you have to be the Cinderella story. As we were saying to the last guy, develop yourself to be able to have the relationship skills to create a great relationship. Know how to do that first. And that is a more effective path to getting to love. But know how to create the relationship and understand who you have to be and what you're responsible for to make that happen. Nothing magically happens. So don't go into it looking for love. Um, Go into it looking to create a great life together with with the two of you being on the same team. And thanks for joining us.
I absolutely love that. And I agree wholeheartedly, Ted, that compatibility is key when it comes to um, seeking a mate in the higher socioeconomic classes. Love is the last thing that you should be looking for. Not saying that love is not important, you can't grow into love. But if marriage is what you desire, make it about marriage and look for a partner that you can create the best marriage with. And it starts from the very beginning. It starts with you, right? It starts with you. Who you are being says a lot. That determines who you're able to qualify for and what you're able to attract. And if you are not attracting what you think you desire, then you need to do the work. Now is the time. Now is the time to get it right and get it together. I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but marriage rates are dropping, and men are, although marriage rates are dropping at the bottom, marriage rates are staying the same or increasing at the top. And you're seeing more men elevate to the top. Men's status will change over time because the way that our society is, they're seeking out more opportunities, they're seeking out more money. I mean, men are making money hand over fist. And if you are not in proximity to them, if you are not in line, if you are not doing what it takes, you are going to miss that boat, unfortunately, because they are seeking wives. Men in the higher socioeconomic class are seeking wives. Even if they're struggling at it, they still want it. They're still seeking it. So you have to be a woman who is willing to be able to create that with them. So you have to learn how to become a wife. If it's something that you've never been taught, you've never been educated on, that's why I'm here. That's why this channel exists. If you would if you want to learn how to become a wife today to attract the high value man who is looking for a woman like you, reach out to me by sending me an email in order to join my email list. And you can reach out, send me an email at twoheartsexclusive@gmail.com. And with that being said, join us not this Sunday evening, not the next Sunday evening, but the following Sunday evening for another high value man panel session Q&A with the matchmaker, Letitia Underwood. And with that being said, I bid you all adieu. Good night.